Pressure just feels too much effort.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us on one of the very first episodes of the new show that we have going on for Salto Streets that we are currently calling SOS ID. I'm kind of leaving everything open up for change.
Say that again?
SOS ID.
ID.
Yes, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes. I am joined here, obviously, by my normal co-host, Colin.
Hello, everybody.
And of course, our guest for this week is Brine, the Salty Duck. We are happy to have you here. You've been on the regular show before.
Yes, sir.
This is a new show that we're cooking up. So, the general state of men's health is in decline, right?
Indeed.
And many people have begun to call it like a men's health crisis. They're calling it a lot of different things, right? And so, additionally to that, I actually just heard this week that suicides overall are higher this year than they ever have been on record. As we know, or people may not know, but men make up the majority of suicides in this country. So that's obviously why we mentioned it here today. And I think that it's pretty easy to say that almost everybody's life is a little more difficult right now than it was just a few years ago, for one reason or another.
Indeed.
This show that we're doing is being made with the express intent to address this issue of men's health, the crisis, the whatever you want to call it, right? The idea for the show was actually given to me by my friend Isaiah De La Cruz, which is part of why it is called SOS ID. He's immortalized in the name Isaiah De La Cruz ID at the end, right? Does that make sense? You see where
That
I'm coming
makes
from now?
sense. I like
so the
that.
other reason that we're calling it that, and naturally it lends to the purpose of the show, is that we are here to try and identify and address the problems that men are having in their life before they need to send out a distress signal, which nautically is referred to as an SOS.
Indeed.
Right? See where I'm coming from. You see the
double entendre all the way around,
where
dude.
This was a beautiful moment that I had at work where I was like, I think that I may have figured
The
this
intro's
out.
got to have the
Ooh, there it is.
Thank you.
You know, you're not it.
Thank you.
I almost said naughty boy. You're a nautical boy, I should say.
Yeah.
It does go both ways, actually.
Yeah,
That's very
nice. We know the songs.
So maybe let's just take a second and we'll talk about kind of the general idea. We'll start by talking about that general idea of like the mental health crisis, right? The men's mental health thing. And we could talk about maybe why it's here, maybe some of the issues that men are kind of running into, and then some of the responses that we've seen to it, because I think just in the last couple months, we've seen some like more harshly negative responses to it. There's some,
I think it depends on what corners of the internet you hang out in, precisely.
Yeah,
But,
and I just mean,
but it's more in general than I think ever before.
and that's, I think, what I'm getting at, that, I don't know, and I'm only 28, going on 29, but I don't think 15 years ago, women were coming out in any number to talk about, oh, it's so sad that men fucking feel this way, and like making fun of them for having negative feelings, and that's obviously not.
Do you think that's what's happening now? Is women are making fun of it?
That is happening now. I'm not saying that's happening on a broad spectrum. That's what I was referring to earlier,
Yeah.
is that there is like what I was thinking of and referring to as compilation videos, right, that I have seen of their TikToks, their nonsense, right? So they're garbage people that are doing this thing. but
For
they're-
views, for clicks.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And so I'm not drawing any too finite of a thing.
Yeah,
from
I
it,
wasn't
right?
sure because I know I've seen it some of the other ways too.
Yeah, no, and that's precisely. That's why I'm not saying even drawing it as it's not broadly
brush
happening.
stroke,
No,
yeah.
but this is happening that I don't think we were seeing 10, 15 years ago, that for whatever reason it's happening now is happening. Even if it's just for the views,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother issue for why the fuck are people making fun of genuine mental health issues because they want to get clicks on the internet.
Yeah.
This is a problem. Whether or not it's
That's a broader problem,
precisely.
really.
Whether or not it's a men's mental health problem, I don't know, but it is a problem.
It's certainly not helping.
Yeah, so
that
the
much.
goal, like I was saying earlier, of the show is to talk about some issues in general, but have different people on all the time. If we're calling and I to do some episodes together to be talking about the issues that we are running into as men, that we're dealing with as men, to kind of open up that door for other people to listen to this show and identify with those things a little bit, because I think it's pretty common for men to kind of like suffer in silence,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
It's like a real problem I think most men have, particularly these days, because it's so much. There's so much more of a stigma around it
Yeah.
than even before, because now there's so much more like men's empowerment movements out there. It's like, well, the concept of patriarchy is still, going hard. What is this fourth, fifth wave feminism is not helping, and the concepts of like rape culture and everything that hits the new mainstream, at least as far as like on one side of, we'll just say generalized thought. I don't want to like label this like a politically left or right thing, but on one side of the spectrum, there's men generally are always bad and can do no good unless they are like an ally of some kind.
Do you think there's a political split with suicide rates? Do you think one side commits more suicide than the other?
Ooh.
I think so.
I've never even thought about that.
But for reasons I think are not political. Because I would say
more blue-collar guys probably committing suicide than...
More blue-collar guys and more veterans. The veteran suicide rate is off the fucking charts.
Yeah.
And that's
but they're almost their own class of people.
Yeah.
Which is what essentially they are in some ways.
So I'm like, it might work out to be split politically like that. But also, when you, for lack of a better term, a bunch of like beta male cuck soy boys, they're going to be just as fucked up in the head. Really,
I wonder. That's what I thought of. I was like, I wonder if those guys commit suicide at the same rates that like
I don't know
factory dudes
probably not with guns, but but I would imagine that they do because there's a
with soap
lot
operas
of,
and red wine.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, there's I'm just thinking of the type of like leftist. If you're a white leftist dude, and you're doing your best to like hold down the fort and represent all the people and be an ally. At the same time, you're still a white male, so you're still the dude that they're complaining about. You're still going to be told not to talk when you show up to fucking rallies and stuff like that. Your opinion means less. All this stuff, right? So even if somehow you can deal with that cognitive dissonance that you're holding of trying to support those ideals while also being the problem of all of these things. If you can somehow get around that, you're still the issue. You're still the problem all of the time. Yeah. And that's got to wear down on you if people are constantly telling you that you're the... I'm going to hear that all the time.
I don't think that's a source of a lot of people's self-loathing, though. You think people take it that seriously?
I think if you're surrounding...
What politics is saying to them?
I don't think politics. I mean the people around them. And that's through their political spectrum and their
cultural
expression, but not just because a political leader is telling you you're garbage.
Like, I don't give a fuck what they think.
No, it's because the people around them that there are also that align with them politically, so they're supporting the same things as them. Those people are also, like, if you're supporting those social ideals, at the same time, if you're running with that leftist shit, you're accepting and promoting that you are the problem as a white male. Yeah, and I'm not drawing a fucking broad, like, I don't think this is a ton of people, but I got to imagine there's some dudes that fucking kill themselves because at the end of the day,
they feel like they're the problem. Like, I am the bearer of the responsibility of...
And I can't win. There doesn't matter. And stuff. It doesn't matter who I'm supporting, who I'm an ally of, who I'm trying to, like, promote. At the end of the day, they're still telling me that I'm the problem, even though I'm here at this rally promoting their shit.
Yeah. And it's hard to tell... for sure, because it's like we're not a part of those circles.
And I've never thought about this before. This is just where my brain went.
Because I
haven't thought about this either.
From like the outside perspective, you feel like it has to. Because I'm trying to put myself in those shoes, and I mean, we got a mutual buddy who is pretty surrounded by those types of people, and it's definitely affected him. 1,000%, and the way he moves throughout life, and the way.
Do I know this buddy? Have I met him one singular time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. Well, maybe more than once, but I think I know just for once.
And I remember when I was doing running starts when I was in high school, one of the college classes I was in, I don't remember which one it was, but we were having some type of discussion that was running parallel to race, right? And I don't even remember the exact parameters of the discussion. I just remember this interaction that I had, and I was explaining something, and I felt like it was starting to get into like dicey territory, and there was just a small, like 2 or 3 black girls in the class, and they were all sitting together, and I turned and like apologized to them for however I felt like whatever I was saying could have been perceived. Ooh. And she snapped at me and was like, "Why are you apologizing to me? You don't need to fucking apologize to me." And I was super confused. Was like, was trying to be considerate. Like, I felt like I was doing the right thing by just prefacing, like, I'm not trying to be a fucking dickhead by saying this, so I'm sorry if that's how you took it. And she was not pleased by that, you know.
That's based. I like her. She sounds cool.
Certainly. Now I'm like, this was the right thing for you to do. But at the time,
Yeah.
you know, because I was fucking
No, just say
17
what you
or whatever.
mean. You don't have to preface it or.
Precisely. And
Yeah.
they were older than me. Like, that's a definite, I would say, could be an issue with the Running Star thing. You know, you got a bunch of 15 to 17-year-olds running around a college that are interacting with people who are.
Yeah, I don't know much about that program.
Yeah, so Running Star was you took college classes instead of high school classes, but they counted for high school credits.
Yeah.
So so you're there with, you know, adults of any age because it's a community college. So
Yeah.
you're there with people who are 19 to fucking 65 that are
Yeah.
just getting another degree. And so to some extent that's very good. To another extent it cannot be because you're
Yeah.
interacting with another
Well, that's like
adult
kids
who's
who work
like
retail. You got like 16-year-olds next
Right.
to 80-year-olds.
right.
That's a weird concept.
Yeah.
I see it every day now because
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah.
work in a retail. I don't work retail myself, but I work in a retail environment. You know,
Yeah.
I'm around it enough.
Right, so it's not inherently bad, you know,
Yeah.
but it can get complicating, and especially in just discussions like that of like that. To me, at that time at 17, I think anybody that I knew that aligned with me politically would have probably done the same thing. You know, that's just like that's where we were at in the headspace
Yeah.
of like we need to make sure that all these minorities know that we're fucking not hostile towards them.
Dude.
You know,
That's so wild to think about because if you were 17, that puts me in my early 20s, and so I was out in the world and just doing my own thing over in fucking Long Island at that point.
Long
Yeah.
Island.
A fucking Strong Island, baby. And there was like I never ran into any of
Bro,
that stuff.
Tell me out. Racism does not exist out there.
Dude, no.
You don't see it.
I mean, there's-
everybody just lives together.
Yeah, there is.
I'm not walking by myself
No.
in certain areas, but that's how they want it too. So-
Exactly. But like there is pretty hardcore racism, but it's usually between like Italians, Irish, and like
El
Jewish people.
Salvadorians and Mexicans.
Well, that's a whole
This-
thing there.
I think we've lost the plot here a little bit.
no. This
No.
is
just
to me. This
Okay.
is the point. It's
It's
this-
just a very different thing out there, and
This-
so I never ran into it.
yeah.
It was weird.
yeah.
It does seem different out here. Like you have to feel like you tiptoe around here a bit more.
It is. People are very. This is why it all makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are extremely sensitive out here. There was
Passive aggressive capital of the world.
when I went
That's
to the pumpkin patch. I was there with my fucking cousin, right? And she's half black. We're having this conversation about McCleary, super tiny town, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
she started talking about. She's like, "Well, this used to be a fucking sundown town or a sunset town, and like all this stuff, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Yeah, for sure." So I thought that she meant it's a place where old people move when
Yeah,
they're
that's what
tired.
I would've
That's
thought.
what I
What
thought
did
she
she
meant.
mean?
So what she meant is that it's a place where minorities used to not be able to go outside after nighttime because people would like lynch them and shit.
Oh.
It's like, well,
Wait,
first of
what?
all, I've never heard this term before. Like I agreed
Unlikely.
with what she was saying.
I assumed it meant like everything
Precisely.
closes after the sun goes
But
down.
then
Yeah, I
her
thought it was like Johnny Rockets in Orlando.
her
or
larger
something.
point is that, you know, she would never feel safe moving somewhere like that because she spent a weekend in, I think it was McClear that we were talking about, and she felt like people were staring at her. She knew people were staring at her because she's a minority and blah blah blah. And I was like, well, let me hold on for a second because we spent a weekend there in an Airbnb, and when we went to town, people looked at us because McCleary has 9 people in it, and they knew that we weren't from there. It's not because you're black, because no one cares there that you're black. I'm willing to bet, or the majority of the people don't care that you're black. It's that you aren't fucking from there, and they can tell that. When you're not wearing Carhartt, when you're wearing your fucking Gucci clothes, you're obviously not from McCleary, and everyone is going to look at you.
Yeah. Well, that and they know everybody there, and there's an outsider. There's a
That's what
stranger
I'm
that
saying.
they're
That's what
not
I'm
from
saying.
here.
They know that you aren't from here. It's
Yeah.
not that you're a
But
minority.
also,
it's
like-
that you aren't from here.
Where I live, there's not a lot of black people. Tons of Mexicans, tons of white people. Not
There's
a lot
not
of
a
black
ton of
people.
black people around here
But
in general.
if I'm in Federal Way and I see a black person,
Yeah.
I don't think twice about it. When I'm in Allen or Shelton and I see a black person, I think, oh, look, a black person.
Yeah.
Which, you know, whether that's racist or not, whatever anybody wants to say about that. It's like,
Depends
it
what
just,
decade it is.
It just seems like it's less common, so I see something that's not common and my brain triggers and goes,
Yes.
oh, I don't see that a lot out here. Not that, oh, I have a problem with it, or you're
Yeah.
lucky it's daytime.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
It's like
Right.
it's the same difference of noticing a Ferrari on
Yeah,
the highway when you're
exactly.
driving around here,
Exactly.
Right.
because
Some-
you're not used to seeing Ferraris on the roads here.
My
Exactly.
point
Every now and
really
again.
being that the level of sensitivity has turned up so high
Yeah.
that you can't even be noticed without it being some type of racial fucking whatever. Like
Everybody
it's
thinks there's an
about
ulterior
something
thing.
else when
Well, I mean, yeah, it could be racial or like the gender based
It-
or whatever it is. You
could
just
be.
something.
It could be, but I think that we can. I feel comfortable saying that the most likely thing that it is in a town like that's that small.
For sure.
It's because you don't live there, and people know that as soon as they see you. It's not because of the color that you are. It's not because they're judging you based on your appearance, like in a prejudiced way. You know what I'm saying? They
Mm-hmm.
might be like, look at this fucking city slicker, but not in the way that like, look at this fucking N word that's in my town now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I don't.
Here's
think
an
that
outsider.
that's-
What
and
are
I
you
don't-
doing here?
I don't think that that's the reality of it, and I partially because of my own experience that when I went there to the same town that we were talking about,
Yep.
we experienced the same thing because I'm obviously not
Oh,
from
yeah.
there.
Yeah. You
see it-
I'm evidently not from McCleary. So we walked into the hardware store trying to find socks for Dax because there's only 3 fucking stores there, and everyone is staring at us. Everyone is staring
Oh, yeah.
at us, because we're obviously not from there.
Yeah.
Really,
And I
in McCleary, you had that?
I am almost certain that that's where it was. Yeah.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
There was we've got Airbnbs in a couple of real tiny fucking towns like that because we were talking to Sean about Montesano. I'm pretty sure we've stayed there.
And they
too.
just know, yeah. Like,
They
you're,
just
You're
know.
not wearing the clothes they wear. They're all
Yeah.
loggers or tree,
They're
Well,
tree
and
people.
that's- And
Yeah.
Sean
Tree
was saying in
people.
Montesano, there's 5,000 people in the population there.
It's not a lot, dude.
If there's
No, Kurt
4,
Cobain's from Montesano. He's actually not actually from Port Angeles.
that's
He's
just
from Montesano.
Aberdeen is where they say that he's
Or
from.
Yeah, it's Aberdeen. Yeah.
That's just where he lived or whatever.
I feel like I was lied to my whole life.
Probably.
I think most of it works that way.
It's a giant conspiracy, Brian.
True. That's true.
It's really what it is. But no, there's a lot to be said, I think, about. This applies to everything mental health, in the mental health capacity is when sensitivities are turned way the fuck up like that. It's extra stuff that's going on in your brain all the fucking time. Whether people are judging you because they think you're judging them or they are judging you, whatever it is, just even if your sensitivity isn't turned up, everybody else's is.
Right.
And so getting into those situations, there's 1.5 million different ways that you can be in that situation, and it's all going to have like a negative feedback loop in your mind unless you're really able to just really brush it off. If you're very, very healthy and just do not give a shit about it at all.
Yeah.
You could be the most mentally defiant person out there, and still there might be something in the back of your mind that lingers, when somebody looks at you strange because you're from out of town or whatever. It's not a comfortable thing, and that feeling lingers with you over time.
What's crazy is like white people. I think white people and Asians are the highest percentage of suicides. Like whatever perceived racism people feel who are black, I don't think they commit suicide a lot, and I'm sure a lot of it's not even because of their perceived racism.
Right.
So more people probably have negative emotions going the other way, where, like we were saying, like the beta guys who want to feel like, oh, I'm on everybody's side and I support this and that, where they're feeling like they're not getting their fulfillment from whatever they wanted to seek when they decided to go along with those
Right.
those ideas, and now they're in a situation where they have mental health issues.
Yeah.
Where
Right.
the people who are perceived to be experiencing the racism, well, statistically, they're not committing suicide at the rate that
Right.
the others are, who they'd be getting it from.
Nor have they ever, but
I don't.
It's,
Yeah.
no, I mean, and it's partially what is it when you're being joking, but you know that you shouldn't be, facetiously,
Facetious.
right? That like even during. I should never have said it, but it doesn't matter. Even during like slavery, the vast majority of slaves weren't killing themselves. Like they weren't, in a time which was the worst, conceivably the worst time that anybody could have, being
Oh, yeah.
subjugated forever by somebody else. They weren't killing themselves. And that's not.
Yeah.
this is why it was facetious, because it's like a throwaway
Yeah,
comment. But
for sure.
But that has held kind of forever.
Yeah, I didn't want to put it
there-
as bluntly as you
No,
did, but yeah.
no, and
yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Fucking call me Charles Monroe, bell curve up in this bitch. But no, and historically that has just kind of held. Like there's never been enormous dips, from my understanding, in or in, I guess, spikes, I should say, in like the African American suicide rate. They don't fucking do that. They just don't.
Yeah.
They just forge on. They just continue to.
And it's almost like a joke
do
at this point.
shit.
You see like memes about it.
Yeah, they just don't fucking do that. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, that's gotta be
It's a
just-
white person thing. That's to kill yourself. That's a white person thing. They're like, we don't fucking do that. They might kill themselves, and this is whatever. But like fucking doing drugs or something, like overdose. But they're not out there like
Yeah,
purposefully
committing-
overdosing. Yeah, intentionally
Yeah.
taking their own lives. It just isn't. You know.
Yeah, and then every
Statistically, they're not doing that shit.
yeah, and statistically, every demographic group does have, you know, ways of generalized lifestyle, and yeah, for whatever reason, certain groups don't really fuck around with that, like
Right.
with suicide and stuff like that. Obviously, there's going to be people who do, but as like on a general level, generally, it's like white males are always at the top of the list.
Well,
And even by like a percentage base, not just because not on like a per capita thing, because there's
Yeah.
a shit ton of, you know, white dudes around, but on a percentage base, it's generally the highest category.
can we go Barney style and talk about why we think people get to the point where that is an option they actually?
I think that would be a great idea.
So I was just on the way there. I was just thinking about like the different reasons that these different demographics end up committing suicide, and you know, for white people, it's fucking X, Y, and Z. There's a 9 million different reasons. Depression, obviously, is fucking the core of it. Like, if you're killing yourself, it's because
Yeah.
you've got. But there's a ton of Asian people, like older Asian people, that commit suicide. Like,
Yeah.
that's a huge number. Where among other demographics, it's not. You know,
Oh, yeah.
there aren't. This year, actually, there was
Older
a,
as in like elderly
people.
Okay.
Yeah, this year actually
They
there
do it a lot
was
for shame in the Asian
precisely,
culture.
Yeah, to like fuck off almost. They're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
we don't want to be a burden on this society, on our family.
But
on
even
whatever.
their young people
Yep.
are a
Yes.
lot higher than
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Japan in particular, I mean, is incredibly high and has been for a very long time. And that probably goes deep into the roots of their actual day-to-day culture and
Yeah.
that they've been living for thousands of years.
a lot of honor and shame,
Yeah.
that type of duality.
I mean,
thing
they
that
have
goes
the
on
the
there.
suicide forest in Japan where people go out there to kill themselves.
Right.
To die. I mean, it's
yeah,
a
like
thing that happens.
famous YouTubers and stuff.
Yeah, that was fucking. And now he's a big boxing guy, which is hilarious.
I don't know the difference between each brother, so
Me neither.
yeah,
I know one is one and the other is
I'm not
I
sure.
don't know.
Was the Forest guy the boxer now?
I
I think
think.
they're the same person.
Are they? Okay,
Yeah.
I
And
truly am not
he's
sure.
I mean,
grown
the
a lot.
brothers, I think they're the same person. No,
Oh, there's it's a conspiracy.
That's likely.
it's
Yeah.
just a hologram. That's all that it is. Every time you see them together, it's just a hologram.
You never actually see the backside of one because they don't exist.
Right.
They're two different people.
You
on
got
the
to
same
give him
side.
credit for the boxing, though.
He's
And
apparently really
apparently
good.
by all
Legit-
accounts, he's legit.
Almost
Yeah.
Yeah.
he's a fucking professional boxer.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
may not be a
If
world
Joe
beater,
Rogan
but-
gives him a pass, then you're like, all right, cool.
Oh yeah,
that makes sense.
I didn't know about that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Good for him.
But I think that's a good avenue to go down is various reasons why, you know, like we'll speak specifically to our demographic that we are because I'm not going to pretend to understand anybody else's demographic, obviously. But, you know, there's a million and one reasons why people start to go down that road. And even without entering the realm of demographic, I mean, shit's really difficult nowadays. In particular, there's more deadly drugs on the street than ever before. Ones that are mixed in with like regular recreational drugs too, that people can accidentally overdose. But a lot of people just, you know, the what is that, the medical trajectory or whatever, the pipeline that people get on when they hurt themselves and they get put on oxys or, you know, some kind of opioid like that, and then get addicted, and then their prescriptions run out, and then next thing you know, it used to be looking for heroin, and heroin was the big deal, and then it
Right.
turned, all of a sudden fentanyl showed up, and then everybody, like, people are dying
What's
left
the
and fucking
cheapest
right.
shit I could put in my body to get a high?
Yeah,
Right.
to make the pain go away.
Yeah, and that was something I wanted to talk about too, is pills and stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's I had I used to do a ton of pills when I was young. When I was like in high school, I did a
Interesting.
ton of fucking pills.
I never fucked with pills,
and
bro. Never.
Did a ton of them.
Terrifying.
You ever do it?
And,
You know,
Terrifying.
you ever get foil crazy? You
a
ever go
couple of
that
times,
deep?
yeah.
Wow,
I
okay.
had cousins who
so
What
did
is
that.
so
what
you're
is foil
serious
crazy for somebody
to
that's
smoke pills.
Oh.
Yeah.
Crush up a pill and smoke it off of foil.
And that was because I had a cousin that I was like, you know, just hanging out with them and like smoking weed with them, and then I was 15 or 16. Like I was very young.
Wow, your life could have been very
15 or
different because of
16. And only did it a handful of times because I just didn't continue to hang out with them after that. I got in trouble not for that, but for doing something else, and then like couldn't hang out with them for a while. And then by the time that I could hang out with her again, she was living somewhere else or something. I don't remember, but we couldn't fucking. Yeah, I just was smoking weed with them and stuff like that. And then we were at their house one day, and they were like, "Have you ever smoked pills before?" And I was like, "No." And I got into doing every other drug because my other cousins did it. I smoked weed for the first time when I was 13 because all my other cousins did it, and so it didn't seem like a bad thing, you know. And they were the ones that I did it with, and so it seemed normal. And like my mom did it, my older family did it. It was very normalized, like to just do
wow.
that.
Yeah.
Consumption in general is very normalized. My dad is an alcoholic. Other people's dads in my family are alcoholics. My parents always, like, my mom didn't drink at home, but like, you know, we went camping or whatever, like she would get fucked up, you know, which is fine. There's nothing wrong
My
with
mom
that.
didn't drink much, but when she did,
Right.
all the way in.
Precisely. So I just mean that like I saw that. So she did drink. She was not an alcoholic. She was never anything like that with alcohol. And then, yeah, hanging out with them. I hadn't even like taken that many pills at that point. And they just asked me like, have you ever smoked pills? And I was like, no, I've never done that. And they were like, well, that's fucking, do you want to try this? They did not make me do it. They asked me if I wanted to. And I just assumed, you know, they're my cousins. Like, it can't be that bad.
Yeah,
you
they're
know,
not gonna
'cause
try to
why
fuck
the
you
fuck
up
would
like
they?
that.
Literally one step from shooting heroin in your arm.
And oxys, just straight oxys, like a just drop a
Yeah.
pill on foil, and then you just like you would tilt it at an angle. I don't know. We're not telling anyone how to do drugs. This was the process that I learned how to do it. You would like fucking tilt the foil at an angle and follow the pill with a lighter, and it would just like melt down the foil, and you would just turn it. You fucking follow it with a straw, you know, suck up all
Yeah,
the.
it's for real.
That's wild shit, dude.
And I didn't.
Well,
I don't
it's
know.
normalized
Like,
at that point for
and
you. I mean,
It's
you're
just like
around
smoking a
it.
joint.
I knew obviously that it was like a different level. Like I knew about drugs.
Yeah.
I knew that there were hard drugs and there were whatever. So I knew that this was different than smoking weed. I did not think it was the same thing, but I just didn't consider like I could become immediately addicted to this.
Yeah.
You know, I never once, any of the stuff I ever did, I never once considered that.
Yeah.
That I could become immediately addicted to this. Because that
so
does
interesting.
happen. Like for some people, if that's just your drug, you know, that could be your thing. There are some drugs that's like how they are by design, you know, like meth and shit. That's supposed to hook you. Crack is supposed to get you the first time that you do it. There's some stuff that's just the thing you're into. You know, if you really fuck with Xanax, the first time you take a bar, you know, you're like, that was the greatest thing I've ever experienced. I need more of that.
Wait.
So, yeah, then when I got older, I took a ton of pills in high school.
Wow.
My same deal. My cousins always took them. My mom had like a rolling prescription for like Flexerol and stuff. And so it was just the having pills was like kind of normalized. Just the existence of them in my sphere was normalized, you know?
Yeah, you grew up around it. It was what it is.
And then I had other friends that were, you know, had certain psychological issues that exaggerated them and grew them to the point that they could, you know, just kind of get as many prescriptions as they could. And so I knew one dude, Tony, who had legit 7-8 prescriptions at one time for,
Various shit.
I mean, Klonopin, fucking like heavy antipsychotic medicines and shit that we were just popping like it was no one's business.
Jesus. It's kind of a miracle you survived.
I'm a little blown away right now.
Yeah.
Jordan and I have reflected many times because her and I used to take a bunch, like take a couple Vicodin and then drink. We would do that all the time, like so many times. And it's the
Yeah,
same
I've done a
deal.
lot
I
of
just
that.
never. I knew that it was dangerous. I knew that people could die that way. I never once considered you just could die. Like it's just a thing that happens sometimes.
You have to take
just,
a ton of Vicodin.
certainly
to do that.
But no, the amount of times that we combined pills and liquor, we are 1,000%.
Crazy.
I mean, very, very lucky that none of us ever OD'd on any level. You know,
yeah.
we never seized. We never fucking. I think for a couple of us vomited a few times while you're drinking. So it's like, you know. Same
Did you
deal,
ever get to the
never
point where when
fucking-
you didn't have it, you were fucked up?
No.
Yeah.
No.
And see, that's kind of
not
the-
with pills.
It's miraculous that, for one, you're alive, but also that at one day you just walked away from it.
Yeah.
You're, like popping all the pills and shit like that. That's most people, I think, don't generally move past that, or they have
I
to
could tell you
go
how
through
hard it
something
is.
hard. Please do.
Yeah, I'll start with my cousin first, actually. So she was in a car wreck, and she broke her spine or something, but she was on Oxy for like 6 to 8 months, right? And got super hard in the heroin, lost her kids, like destroyed her life. She ended up cleaning it up, getting her kids back, living good now, got remarried.
Beautiful
Happy story.
Beautiful.
But when I was watching that, I was like watching it through Facebook, right? As weird as that sounds, and then like talking to her siblings and stuff. I was thinking to myself, like, why can't you just stop? Like, I don't understand why you just don't stop. Like, you don't have to get high, right? Like,
It's like you lost your kids, man. Like, why aren't you stopping?
yeah, just stop. Well, I broke my leg skiing back in 2015, and I had 2 big bottles of Perks or Oxy. I cannot remember which one they were.
Yeah.
One of the pills that they give out, they used to give out like candy. So I had that, and I had like 3 refills on it. Had that, nailed that one down, zipped through it, and I was at home drinking. I mean, I destroyed my leg. Both.
Yeah.
It was serious. So I was in a lot of pain. Didn't even think twice.
It was your
right?
femur, right?
It was my tib and fib, so both the bones
Oh.
from the knee down. And yeah, they were gnar too. They were talking about taking my leg off, blah blah blah, because I'm like, I didn't shorter on that leg.
What a
It was
mind
gnarly.
job.
Yeah, but got the refill, flew through that, started taking them more for fun and less because I was in pain, more because I've been doing this and I have nothing to do
Yes.
because I wasn't going into work.
Yes.
So I was just drinking, playing Fallout,
Yeah.
and just melting,
Yeah.
and just at the time my ex was also taking them with me, and she was going through them too, so we started polishing off the bottles a bit quicker, and then I popped the army system, the awareness, saying, hey, like,
We're getting them too quick.
what's going on here, figure it out.
Were you in the Army at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Army I got the cert, when you pass Madigan up at JBLM, you see the big hospital off on the military base. That's where they did my surgery. I was out overlooking JBL or the highway there. But yeah, I flagged their system, and they were like, we'll give you like 30 more, but after that, that's it. And I was like, all right. I actually don't even want them, because I was like, it's not like I need them. And the
Were you
next
pretty
few
aware
days-
of what you were doing at that point?
Not as well as I was looking back.
Yeah.
I was aware, like, oh, I can't keep doing this, but like, whatever, it's not a big deal. Like 3 days after I ran out, it was a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
Right.
I was in pain. I was throwing up. I was shitting myself. Like, I was taking 5,000-6,000 milligrams a day, which I don't think is a ton, but maybe. I really don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what somebody who's
Yeah.
hardcore addicted.
Right.
I guess that would be like over $100 worth of pills on the market, on the black market. So
Yeah.
I imagine people are. That's why people are crushing them up and smoking them off foil, because they're trying to get every little drop out of it.
Well, and then you can smoke the trails afterwards too. Like when you've smoked the pill, when you're fucking hard
Yeah.
up for it, you'll go back and then like re-hit the trails on the foil.
That's how you end up like Hunter Biden combing through the carpet looking for.
Yeah.
I must
Stuff.
smoke my carpet weed.
So let me fucking think out loud with you for a second, because you got my brain running about the pills and stuff, right? Because I don't think that we took I'm going to say most of the shit that we took, especially in high school, were like benzos or whatever you call it. It was a lot of like psychotics and shit, like that type of stuff. And
So retro.
yeah,
Dropping
just because
benzos.
that's just what they were getting, it was just crazy shit that if you don't need it, it fucks you up,
Yeah.
and even if you do need it, it just numbs you out. So it just gets you fucked up. And then we did take some pain pills, like some Vicodins and stuff like that, but way less of it. And then when I kind of stopped taking pills was when I was taking Vyvanse, like Adderall. So I was switching pills all the time too, like taking different pills. And so when I was
whatever you could get.
well, and when I was taking Adderall, I was working at the call center. I'm like reflecting now, thinking of all the different ways that I like justified taking these pills and not thinking about it. Because when I was taking Vyvanse, I was working at the call center, and I was like, I didn't need it, but I was like, well, I'm working here, and I'm going to take more calls if I'm on Adderall, and I'm going to get the job done quicker.
Yeah, it's
and,
for the best.
And I did do that. Like, I
Yeah.
did get very good at that job. And then I tapered off of that because I knew that I was fucking with like 40, 50 milligrams a day. And I was like, I have to.
Adderall is pretty serious. I've had it
Oh,
yeah.
once, and I'm like, this
And
is...
Vyvanse is like, is just.
What is Vyvanse?
Vyvanse is like a super Adderall. Like I felt the hit from Vyvanse way more than I did from Adderall because I would get. There was one friend that I had that I was buying her Vyvanse because she just didn't like taking it, you know, but was always filling. She was making money, so she was always filling the prescriptions, and then. She was going to school, so sometimes she would need to take it, but then she would sell me her Adderall when she needed her Vyvanse, and so I would like take some Adderall, but I didn't feel it as much, you know. It did what it needed to do, but not like the Vyvanse, you know. And so I tapered off Vyvanse because I knew that I was fucking with a heavy and that I couldn't just quit, you know. I had been doing pills for long enough that I knew I couldn't just quit doing pills.
Really come down.
But then the times after that I've had prescriptions, like I remember being at Bennick one time. I vividly remember this, and I was having stomach issues that they thought was a kidney stone at first, and they gave me a fucking prescription of oxys for it, and so I know it, dude. I know it. And so
What a crazy jump.
I know.
Yeah.
And well, this was on the process to finding out that it was stomach issues. So this was like initially they thought that it was.
Is that usual for them to be like, oh, you have kidney stones, which sucks. But
I don't know.
They're just like,
I don't
here's
know.
a potentially life-altering substance.
I don't know. But they
Crazy.
set me up with a fucking 30 rack, and I was like, this is what's up. I'm going to take these because this is awesome. And like
They're free.
Well, yeah, and I knew I was 21 or whatever at that point. Like I was a little bit older. But I also remember standing at Bennick counting them because I was like, oh, if I take, 3 a day or whatever, then that's like 3, 4, 5 more days. Like I remember having them in my hand and like doing that math of like this day, this day, this day, this day, and then I'm not going to have them anymore. So I remember that, but not like then being in pain afterwards, but that proclivity still being there, you know, of fucking counting them to know when I'm not going to have these pills anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where normally if you don't have that, you're just either you don't take them, or if you're going to ride that out, you just take them until you don't have them anymore.
I didn't know it was going to be that hard to get off those things.
How long did you essentially go through it?
Like
to
3
feel
days.
just like 3 days
Then
of
it was gone.
just the shit.
It was maybe like a day and a half of just like, I'm in a lot of pain on every part of my body. Every shoulder hurts. Every elbow hurts. Anywhere you've ever felt pain in your life now hurts.
Oof.
And just my stomach's messed up. Couldn't eat, sweating. Just like, I understand why somebody's like, well, I've called every family member I have. Nobody has anything. I know someone who can get me fucking heroin or whatever random bullshit you could buy on the street. I don't know. I never went that far, right? But I could totally see why and how that happens. And I used to, when I was talking about my cousin, I was just like, just stop doing it. Like, it's your fault. Like,
Right.
this is your fault.
Right.
Right? Like, the accident wasn't your fault, but this is your fault. And that's like so many people I see in the street. I'm like, I hate that you're there for my own selfish reasons. I hate that you're there for you. And it's like, while, yeah, maybe taking something was your fault at some point, but it's like, I understand. It's super hard to get off this shit. And like the physical pain was like, I would have done anything to fucking stop that. It's like, I could take a pill and then not feel this way? Yeah, duh.
It makes sense. And that's, I mean, addiction itself it's obviously on the spectrum. You know, I mean, hopelessly addicted to nicotine is not the same as hopelessly addicted to like an opioid
or alcohol.
Or alcohol.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I've dealt with that in my life and seen it go all the way multiple times with multiple members of my family. I'm not interested in any of that.
And yet we still drink.
Yeah, we do. Because I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to go down that road because I have before, and I was able to pull myself back when I needed to. So I trust myself to, like, if I'm going down that road, I feel like I could identify it. And if for some reason I fail, I think I have enough people around me in my support system immediately that are that would immediately identify that.
When he's gotten to those times, he checks in with, I can only speak for myself, but he will check in with me regularly to be like, hey, I kind of feel like maybe I'm doing this, you know, like I might be drinking too much, it might be this. Do you think this is happening, you know, and to make sure that like,
Give me a little check here.
yeah,
Where am
you
I
know,
at?
because of his family history, he can be like, it's not a bad thing, but like sensitive to it. You know, he's very aware
Yeah.
when he
Oh,
starts
yeah.
to drink
I feel
more.
that.
So, which is a good thing. Like it does you credit. You know that you consider it, that it doesn't just happen. You know that you at least notice it and start thinking about it and reflect on it. Because when you don't, obviously that's when you wind up fucking.
And I mean, it's a difficult thing because you're always conscious of it. So you're kind of always in your own head. But, you know, obviously with the things that people get addicted to, generally speaking, you're having a generally good time when you're doing it. And so it's easy to just, maybe this was fine this time, or this was fine this time.
Yes.
And then next thing you know, you might be able to identify that you have a problem and then can't get out of it. If you're lucky, you can identify that you have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times most people don't. Or they can, and then they just resign themselves to be like, well, this is just what I do now.
Right.
And that never goes real well.
I think there's a big problem. A lot of people don't, in general, with drinking, don't set like limits. You know, they drink to the point where they like can't drink anymore, or they're throwing up or whatever.
Yeah.
It's only in the last maybe 2 years that I have started to set that limit to, like, I've been out at a party or whatever. I'm like, I've had a couple shots, I've had a couple beers. Like, I know that in an hour, I'm going to be super fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm going to not drink anymore right now. I'm going to wait a little bit, have some water, and then maybe I'll fucking revisit the alcohol, you know what I'm saying, in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that's to each their own. Like, that's not, I'm not telling
There's definitely
anybody.
ways to skin that cat.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
telling anybody this is how you should drink, but I think there are a ton of people that don't do any limiting or metering or anything at all.
yeah.
It's just, fucking balls to the wall all the time, which can be very dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, there's a period where Lil Broski was going through a situation that wasn't so great, and I mean, he reflects on it now all the time, where like he'd go out to the bars and he would consistently and regularly black out to the point
Right.
he had no concept of how he fucking got home because his car's there,
Right.
and or what happened for like 6 hours of his life at that point.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and one day he finally woke up and identified that, and he's never gone down that road again, which is pretty interesting, I think, to be able to pull the e-brake like that when you needed to, and not go down that road again, because it's not like it's not easy to do.
Well, and you get guys too who never ever drink, and then they get peer pressured into it in one night after work, and 5 hours later they're in jail because they were in a DUI crash.
Yeah.
Fucking, you know.
Yep, I've known.
It's like alcohol is just playing with a loaded gun. Period.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, it's with most other enjoyable chemicals. They're all like that, really.
Yeah.
Alcohol's
Weed
tough,
is
though.
like maybe not.
But I think this
It could be if you go crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that, and it depends on. You can be smoking weed and getting high all the time for bad reasons. That'll make you. I think addiction is the wrong word. It's a different thing. Like you might be, you'll form a habit of doing it, or you might, mentally become addicted to it because you just want that feeling of always being high or always being stoned because life fucking sucks or whatever. But it's not necessarily a full-on chemical dependency like a lot of real addiction is. I don't want to use the term real addiction, but other addictions.
also,
it's on
function
that spectrum
while
you were talking about.
Yeah, it's on the spectrum, but
Yeah.
You could also function while being high.
Yes.
Mostly.
mostly.
Certainly. You
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
And everybody's got different tolerance
Right.
levels
Yeah,
that change
exactly.
over
Yeah,
time and
it's
all
all-
that. But
There's going to be,
it's a very different chemical, though.
Right. There's going to be certainly a slight delay, in some instances, just in your reaction time and shit like that, just because you're high. That's just your brain.
And
is
I would say
literally
for
being
most
altered,
healthy people, there are people on that road that are way worse driving shape, and they're sober as could be.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very true.
Yeah. No, I smoke a ton of cannabis. I conduct a large amount of my daily business while, maintaining some level of highness.
THC involvement.
Yeah, I don't, and I think about it sometimes. It's probably not great. There's way other places that money can go. We don't spend an excessive amount of money on it.
Weed's exceedingly cheap these days, which is
Yeah.
nice.
It's
especially if you don't
something
smoke too much. But
I'm definitely habituated. I've been
Speaking of,
smoking weed
anyone
for
want to partake in a joint?
yeah. I'll
Oh,
open up this.
I'm good.
You're good.
I
I'm
don't
good.
think I have a
Yeah.
lighter in here.
No, that's fine. If
I don't think I have a
what
lighter
about
in
you?
here. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I can go find a lighter. If
I don't
you
have a
want.
lighter. I'm fine.
All
You
right.
can
Well, I'll
hit
definitely
the pen
smoke a
there.
joint with you afterwards. If you want to keep hitting this, I'll definitely smoke a joint with you afterwards.
I don't know if I want to rip one right before I drive while having yours.
Do you want me to go and get a
But-
lighter?
I'm indifferent. I'm not going to make you stop the show for a lighter. I think we're good.
Okay.
Sorry to derail.
No, that's fine.
No, you're okay.
Actually, I was going to pivot when we were kind of winding down with this, because I wanted to ask you about your. Unless anybody else had anything to talk about with addiction and chemicals and so on and so forth.
Nothing other than that's a huge problem of
It's a big one.
mental health is addiction.
It's yeah.
Probably the leading cause for people my age. I'd assume. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that it's worth analysis more often than people do. You know,
All of my friends who are struggling in other parts of their life are also struggling with addiction.
some form of addiction. Yeah,
I've noticed.
I think. Oh, the alcohol, the like the social acceptability of it. You know, makes it an easier avenue almost. You know, there's so much
yeah.
less judgment around it. It's so normal to like hang out at the bar, to be a regular, to fucking whatever. You know, like all this stuff.
Well, then, and it's a very social chemical as well. I mean,
Right.
it's a social drug because you're there with your friends and you're having a good time and everybody's drinking and you know that's why like bars are bars. I mean, that's kind of what they're there for. There's a social element of being around people and stuff, all doing the same thing, and it's all accepted in that establishment.
We're drinking right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I'm a regular at a brewery. It's
Right.
it's a very fun thing to do. I have a lot of good friends that I've made there that we spend lots of time out in the world. I mean, they just did a big shooting day and stuff like that. A big group
Right.
of them. We've got we go out and do all sorts of little activities, and we're all really close friends at this point. We text each other all the time. It's a cool deal. But if you only have bar friends and you only see them at the bar and the only thing you guys do is drink, that can, but it's not necessarily is. It could be a problem at that point. But
Especially
then
if you're
that's the
getting-
only place you're doing.
Especially if you're getting shithoused every single day that you're at the bar.
Exactly.
know?
Because you can go to the bar and have
I don't know how people could afford to do that.
it's, well, especially get fucked up. 'cause
Yeah.
you're-
Oh, yeah. Getting fucked up is
Yeah,
what I mean. Yeah.
that's the big
Having
one,
a couple
yeah.
beers every day is whatever.
Well, and if
Yeah.
you're going to a bar to get fucked up, you're drinking. You
Shouldn't
know,
be doing that.
Well, you're drinking well bourbon or whatever the well is, the cheapest fucking liquor. You know, so you're talking about whatever like $8 double shots. You know, and that's just you're just drinking that. You probably are in with some of the bartenders, so you get some type of discount because you're spending
Getting a hookup.
$80 there every fucking day. You know, so they're like, oh, we'll
Yeah.
take 10% off of it because he's
Yeah.
here every day anyway.
Yeah. I worked with a guy.
Which still makes it crazy expensive because you're still talking about fucking
Yeah.
$70 a day or whatever,
Oh, yeah.
$50 a day. But that lends to what you're talking about of people who are in that level of addiction struggling in other parts of their life. It's because so much of your life goes to this one thing that is destructive to all the other parts of your life.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, kind of, I don't know, thinking off the cuff, like that's one of kind of the deciding factors of addiction, maybe, you know, is whether it's negatively impacting other parts of your life, regardless of the physical or chemical dependency on it, you know, even if it's something you could stop doing right now. Like if
Yeah.
you're doing it all the time by choice and it's fucking with other parts of your life and you're still doing it, you know, you're probably kind of addicted to this thing.
Yes.
Even if it's not gonna, you know, make you scratch at your skin when you
Yeah.
stop doing it, you know?
And even things like hardcore gym people, they can become addicted to
Oh,
the
yeah.
gym lifestyle,
Yeah.
right? And you don't think of a lot of negative implications with that, but let's just say if you're spending all day at the gym and you got friends there and all that, it's a generally healthy thing to do. You're getting healthier physically and all this stuff, but you know, that becomes your life. And so whatever your life was before that, if that aspect of your life isn't involved in your new gym lifestyle or whatever it is, you're going to be neglecting that.
Yeah.
And that right there, that's another sign of addiction there. Your other aspects of your life are being negatively impacted by something that you're doing all the fucking time, even if it's not a chemically destructive thing. You might be
And I'm sure it's to the point that is too.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
They're, you know,
for sure.
Those absolute freak show bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Oh,
I guarantee
yeah.
you some of those dudes, it might as well be alcohol because they spend all day doing this thing. All their money's going to chicken and protein and,
Right.
you know, and they can't move as well. Their bodies break down super fast.
Yep.
Well, especially if you start like this is a unexaggerated example, but I still think a good one, like Liver King, right? When he was exposed for, you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
When he was exposed for doing all the tests and stuff like that, he was talking about he's spending like $11,000 a month on fucking testosterone to be yoked up like that,
Yeah.
you know? And even
That's insane.
it is
yeah.
insane, you know? And I don't know what he does in his regular life or whatever, how he's making that money, but regardless, you're spending $11,000 a month to look a certain way because you're addicted to looking that way because you are fucked up in your, and he said
And
that
in his
in all
case,
the
it's
interviews
making him money though.
certainly,
But it's like, yeah,
but
it's
you're
still,
fucked up in the head, and that's not
Yeah.
like a denigrative thing. But
it's not making him any healthier.
no.
Oh no.
no.
If you see him right now, current
He looks
pictures of him,
terrible.
I think his body's shutting down.
He
I think
looks
it's
terrible.
It's real scary.
Yeah,
But I mean, even that. Let's say one day, that is, you're making money by spending all this money on PEDs and testosterone and shit to look the way you are. That feeds in the cycle of making you more money, and then one day, it is going to stop. And now you're hopeless. You're living a lifestyle where you're spending $11,000 on fucking drugs every day to look a certain way, and now you can't afford your lifestyle anymore, and you're going to have to go. The withdrawals alone will fucking kill you because you
Right.
can't afford that lifestyle anymore. Game
Well,
over.
and that
That's a
fucking-
dangerous rope to walk.
and with someone like that, it might drive them to kill themselves because of how bad they're going to start to look when they're not able to keep up that fucking cycle.
Yep.
You know, you're going to start losing muscle mass and stuff immediately. And if you're enormous like that, you're going to have loose skin and shit when you're done. Just like if you were huge
Yep.
and then lost a bunch of weight. You know,
Oh, yeah.
that will fuck with you if that's the type of person that you are.
Yep.
Like. That'd be bad.
It'd be real bad.
Yeah, it'd be real bad.
The
Yeah.
amount of depression you're going to suffer after that is going to go down
Though that
a
is
dark road, probably.
Right. Because there isn't the level of achievement there like if you lose 400 pounds, you know? Fucking someone who does that is not... Generally, I've seen many accounts of people who've lost on weight. They're generally not ashamed of the extra skin they have. Like, they obviously wish that it wasn't there.
but it's more
they're
like a
not-
badge of what
Yeah,
was.
it is like,
yeah.
I've just lost 400 pounds. This is what it looks
Yeah.
like when you've lost 400 pounds, you know? But if you are just cycled up and then you lose 75 pounds because you can't be tested up anymore, there isn't a badge of honor or happiness that goes on there. It's just destruction to the ego that you falsely
Yeah.
built over however long, you
Yeah.
know?
Though those are fathoms more infrequent than
Certainly.
Yeah.
alcoholics and drug
Certainly.
addicts, but
Yeah. But
it could be
addiction-
anything. It could be collecting Funko Pops and
Yeah.
any
Dude, collectors, that
Yeah.
can be a wild one, too.
Yes.
And there's all sorts of them, but it's...
whatever that dopamine release is for whatever your addiction is.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you're gonna chase that high buying shit,
Yep.
doing drugs.
Yep. Spending hours on fucking
Doing
eBay
reps.
looking for those rare Funko Pops or whatever. I mean, that's fucking real, man. Like, they make shows about that shit. All
Oh
these-
yeah, for sure.
Like the
People base their whole lives off of it, and they do
retro
well.
toy collectors and like some weird, weird for me, I guess. I don't know. It's not my lifestyle.
Well,
But
the show that I listened to, Tell Him Steve Dave, Sunday
Oh, yeah.
Jeff, that's like how he got his job there, was that he was buying an inordinate amount of shit, fucking toys, like action figures and busts, like statues and stuff. And Walt tricked him or got him into this cycle of returning things that Walt had going on for, like, for a profit. It was a whole deal, tricking the SKU numbers and stuff to like make money off of these, returning the wrong items to make money off of these returns and stuff. So he got Sunday Jeff to do this stuff and then got him a job there so he could get a discount on the items he was buying. And he's spending hundreds of dollars a month on toys, on action figure stuff, on literally like Star Wars busts, like stuff like that. And they've talked about it a ton of times that he spent probably $20,000 over the
Is
last...
this a real person or
a real person?
Okay.
This
Sunday Jeff, pull him up.
That's Sunday Jeff.
He was the one addicted to buying all this
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah, show the camera here. It's a throwback to the old studio.
Sunday Jeff.
Yeah, used to hang up in the old studio.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
Unfamiliar.
it's a pretty niche market. We'll say it's a
yeah. Tell him Stevie Dave is beyond niche. It's like a
Yeah.
whole. You know who Kevin Smith is? Like Jay and Silent Bob and Clerks. These
Yes.
movies, right? So the people who do this podcast, Tell him Steve Dave, are best friends of Kevin Smith, childhood best friends of his, and had minor roles in these movies, and started this podcast over a decade ago. And it's maintained an insanely devoted following of not that many people.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But they rock and roll. They run the Kevin Smith has a comic book shop in Jersey.
Yeah.
In Red
Bank.
Jersey. I went down there one day when I was visiting Jersey, and drove down there and went to the thing and got some stuff and brought it back for Donavan and Jordan and stuff like that. But those dudes that run that show run the fucking comic book store for Kevin Smith, essentially.
There was a show on AMC called Comic Book Men for a few years that played like after The Walking Dead, and it was based in this comic book store. All these people were characters. These dudes on this poster, those are the three guys that host Tell 'em Steve Dave. I have a ridiculous amount of this stuff because I'm one of these people.
You guys love them, huh?
These are all, I love them.
Donovan loves
This
them.
is totally a Donovan thing.
Oh, okay.
I fucked
These
with
are
him a
all
little bit
Tell 'em
here and there,
Steve
but
Dave things. This is Walt. This is the guy who used to run the company. That's Sunday Jeff. They host a Kiss podcast. I'm on their Patreon. It's a whole deal. I'm getting
he's
gifts.
deep in it, dude.
Yeah, I get gifts every quarter. It's a whole deal.
Oh yeah.
You're a groupie, huh?
Oh, I'm a dude.
Very nice.
Four color demons for life.
He is
Crazy, and I've never heard of any of them except for the reference to
In
waiting
my
or
life,
whatever.
I've only met one other person who was into Tell 'em Steve Dave. One who, when I met him, he knew what it was. That dude is now dead.
So on levels of addiction, Donovan is definitely addicted to Tell 'em Steve Dave.
Well, has it affected his life negatively? Is that the
No, actually.
That's the
Is
barrier
that
that
the
I set for it. I don't
litmus test for addiction?
know. I don't know. That's what,
What is the litmus
That's what
test?
I set for it.
I
I don't
think
know.
that might be it's a good working litmus test, I think. Is
Are
if
you
it-
plugged into the internet?
Yes.
Will you Google that and see if what? I don't know. I don't even know how to Google that. What is addiction?
What is
What is like? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep it real basic. What is addiction?
How do I know if I'm addicted? I don't.
Addiction
This is addition. So we
That's-
need.
Man.
Just give me the keyboard. We should have two keyboards.
drive.
Colin can do all the producing.
the addiction, the fact or condition of being addicted to a particular substance, thing, or activity.
Word.
Yeah, we understand that.
What is
Yeah.
the definition of addiction? That's the same thing.
Yeah.
Can addiction be a good thing? I guess. is the
Addiction
question there, too.
is defined as a chronic relapsing disorder characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite adverse consequences. So there it is.
Despite
So,
adverse
yeah.
consequences.
But that's like, yeah,
Thank
and
you,
that's
sir.
focusing just on like a chemical.
But I think that could be broadly applied to
Yeah.
whatever we're talking about, because that's kind of what we said, that if it's negatively, if you're
Affecting
seeing
your life.
adverse consequences because of it, and especially if you're compulsively seeking it,
Yeah.
because there's tons of, do you want a beer? Okay. There's tons of, we have a guest in studio. There's tons of other shit that you could compulsively seek that is not a drug,
Yeah.
you know?
That's why I don't like that whole concept of it having to be some form of drug, because
I think that's
Did it say that that was a drug? I'm sorry.
That's
I
what-
got more
that's
hung
what-
up on despite negative consequences.
That's
whatever the
what
last
that
line was.
particular
it's just because you were right.
definition-
That's all. You were right. It's cool. I think that's
Oh,
perfect.
that was not supposed to be a toot my own horn thing. That was just.
That's what that particular.
I was
I'm gonna
I
toot
was
it.
seeking that part of that sentence. That's
Yeah.
why I.
Where is it? But yeah, they stressed in those definitions about like a chemical addiction.
Yeah, I think that's just generally when people are addicted to something, that's what we think of as a type of chemical.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think people consider like behavioral addictions as addictions.
Behavioral
You know,
addictions.
By that I mean not drug addictions to
Like
other
collecting
shit.
Funko Pops.
Collecting things, fucking pornography. There's like any number, like that's probably
Yeah,
a huge
that's-
one. You know,
yeah.
that is a
Well, South Park did a really
Not
good
even sure
episode
what
on
that
it.
would- what that would mean.
Did you guys watch the? This is a while back. This is relatively relatively like we'll say middle life South Park, but like Randy. Do you watch South Park? You know characters and stuff.
Yes, I know who the characters
Okay,
are.
so it's
in high
Stan's
school was
dad.
the last time I've actually like watched an episode. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Stan's dad, Randy, decided that he was an alcoholic, even though he wasn't, and then went through this whole thing about addiction, and it was a disease, and he
right.
was dying because he's got a disease, and he has to seek a higher power, and he's like fucking around with like 12-step stuff, but
Yeah.
not really actually doing it, and it just there was that big distinction
12
between.
steps is the AA.
Indeed, it is
Yeah.
the AA. But yeah, it was the whole concept of like it being a disease versus something that you can actually have power over yourself and control and pull back from and stuff like that. But it was a great episode about just that whole concept of being an addict is a disease that you cannot cure without exterior help.
I know, and I think that that's very interesting because there's definitely I don't know if split is the right word because I don't know what the numbers are, but there are a number of people who believe that you can completely defeat, addiction and stuff like that. And there are other people who believe that there is, genetic predispositions and stuff like that, that when you're exposed to this thing, you're going to have a harder time than somebody else not doing this thing or whatever. And I
bet some of that is so much placebo too. Like,
and I'm sure
my
that,
dad was an alcoholic, so that means if I get into it, I'm going to be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Even though they may not have that gene. I wonder what the reality of that is.
And I can only speak from my own personal experience, obviously. So because I don't know what anybody else's like thought process while they're drinking. And I remember, especially when I was younger and drinking hard alcohol all the time, that after I'd had like 2 drinks, it was really hard for me to stop drinking. I had to really kind of like leave the establishment and do that type of stuff. And I don't know if that's just how it is, or I personally had chalked it up to a predisposition. My dad is a horrific alcoholic, horrible alcoholic. And so that's personally what I drew it up to at that point. And I took it upon myself that it's my responsibility to handle that and to not drink to excess. And to, if I do have 5 drinks, that's, I chose to do that because I am aware of what is going on and I need to be cognizant of that. But I don't, like I said, I don't know what anybody else's experience is, so I don't know if everybody
Mine's
has
very
trouble
similar.
drinking after 2 drinks, or if that's, I don't know.
My
I've
dad
never
was an
asked.
alcoholic. It killed him.
Yeah.
He died because he was crossing the street to go from one bar that closed to the other. Got hit by a car late at night. And I've struggled with drinking my whole adult life, 15 or so, right? I started drinking, and if I open whatever it is, it's getting drank that night.
Yeah.
So I don't drink liquor, right? Because of that. Like beers, I'll just get full and I'll be done.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'll drink.
That's a nice thing about beers is that it does fill you up. There's like an automatic cutoff.
Yeah.
Although, I mean,
I
but
can't drink them fast enough to get like I can whiskey or vodka.
Yeah. I'm a big tequila man myself these days. I like a nice glass of tequila with a couple cubes of ice in it.
No, and I think that's. I almost exclusively drink beer now. I don't hardly ever drink liquor. We did a little bit on the show, just as like a thing, which was whatever. But if I go to a party at one of my friends' house, I'll drink liquor, and I'll get fucked up there. But if I go to a family event or something and I drink beer, even if I have fucking 7 beers, like I'm not as fucked up as as I'm gonna go to like somewhere else. Like it just isn't.
It's like if I'm gonna go like on Thanksgiving, for example, right? I had a couple beers when I was there. While I'm cooking and doing all that stuff, I was at my brother's house, and I had 1 little glass of tequila. But if I drink hard alcohol now, I usually don't very much. It's like a nice treat when I have one, like a nice glass of scotch or a nice glass of bourbon, and then I have 1 because that's all I'm going to do. Otherwise, I'll have 2, and then next thing you know, I'm not going to fuck around with that.
I'd love to be able to have like bottles up of nice shit and be like, oh hey, right before bed I'm gonna have this little nightcap and but I don't know if I can handle that. And 2, I don't like the taste of liquor, period. That burn turns me off so hard. Sometimes I'll get a 9% beer and I'll get a little bit of that and I'll be like, I hate that
too
taste
strong sometimes
so much.
The pure
I don't know
alcohol
how,
flavor,
I will never enjoy sitting there and drinking with a little ice cube in a glass. But I want to, I'd like that. I think that'd be cool, as stupid as that sounds, but it's true.
Right.
Here's another thing that we haven't talked about really, but the people that become alcoholics, we'll just use that as an example because it also works with other drugs and stuff like that. Once let's say they go to rehab or something like that, get clean, they'll go through whatever the detox process is, and then they will, I'm a recovering alcoholic. It's a thing they adopt as their whole lifestyle because they either know or they assume that if they have 1 drink ever again, they're going to end up right back on that road. And I wonder I wonder if that's a I don't want to say real thing, because it's obviously real for some people, or if it's more of like just a safety mechanism to know that you'll never go back to that place again. Because I do wonder.
It's a method of accountability to them where they're at a place where it's like, okay, you're my good friend. You know I'm an alcoholic. We're going to go to Applebee's, right? Well, I'm going to say to myself right before I get there, hey, I don't drink, right? Just so, hey, I'm reminding you. Mm-hmm. So to them, it's a method of accountability for other people outwardly, but then for himself, because they don't have to say that, but they do say that moniker out loud quite often if you've met anybody who's been in really any sort of program like that.
Yeah, it's a very, very common thing to hear.
Yeah. I met a guy who's my ex-wife's dad. He was an alcoholic, went through the AA, became big in the LDS church.
It's Mormons, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Church of Latter-day Saints is what it means. He had 2 brothers who were both alcoholics. One just recently passed, the other's still struggling with it. But he was a health nut. Ran marathons and everything. Recovered from his alcoholism he got from the army. Became his health nut. Well, he had a stroke. And to him, he had this, I spent my life fighting my alcoholism and being in this tip-top shape, and I had a stroke. And it's like he sees his brothers who are both 300 plus pounds, short guys, not doing the right thing, and they're now they're, and the stroke fucked him up. He's lucky he's not dead, but and he got right back into drinking and right back into heavily drinking.
Oof.
And it's like, damn, it's like that was real.
Yeah.
He just, and it was just like the I don't give a fuck anymore kind of attitude, which I'm sure was more to do with it than.
Yeah. I think that makes a ton of sense in the experience that I've had, not with my own addiction, but with the experience with other people, with my sister, right? Because this is where I'm citing all of this from. I think there's definitely a desire factor. You have to want to be clean, and to me, some of the people who are talking about recovering alcoholic, I can't have one drink. You have to want to be clean, and I'm not questioning anybody. I'm not whatever. That's because in your core you still want to drink, and whether that's because of a genetic predisposition or whatever, right? You still want to drink, and you can't be clean and move forward with a clean life unless that's what you want. You know, my sister has been doing heroin and methamphetamines for 7 years now, something like that. She's been to rehab a ton of times. She has 5 children now by 3-4 different men. You cannot force somebody to be clean. There's no level of anything that will force anybody to get clean if they don't want to be clean. It doesn't matter if it's rehab, a child that they have taken away from them by the state, having a parent have custody of one of their children. It doesn't matter. If you don't want to be clean, no one is going to fucking make you be clean. Yeah. And
you'll lose your, you'll get evicted from your apartment or whatever it is, close. Yes. You lose your house, whatever it is. And then because again, you don't want to be clean at that point. Everything else is less important in your life than doing that thing.
And so some of those people, to me, because I can't speak for everybody, right? But some of those people who talk about I can't have one drink or I will fall off the deep end. For whatever reason, you don't want to be clean. You don't want to not drink. And you do to the extent that you aren't drinking. You are willing to because you're not drinking. You are moving forward with this clean life, but you still want to in your core because if you do have that one drink, you're going to pop off.
But I think that's the whole point.
Certainly.
Certainly. They didn't want to have that addiction ever.
Yeah.
I want to be able to drink beer. I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
I enjoy the taste. I enjoy doing things like this and being able to have a beer and loosen up a little bit.
Yep.
I don't enjoy being hungover.
Nope.
Right? I don't enjoy blacking out. I don't do that anywhere near as frequently as I used to.
Yeah.
Now I'm very good at limiting myself, right? Have 2 or 3 beers.
Right.
Or, with these guys have 6 or 7 beers because they're whatever. But you know what I mean.
It's 8 hours, when we're doing the regular show, it's a long day. There's lots of beers to be had. But interesting. I started this thing a couple years ago where I take it's like a spin-off of Sober October. I take generally a month now over the last couple of years where I just choose not to drink at all.
Yeah.
Because it's probably that kind of voice in the back of my mind that's always, wanting me to check in with
It's a
my friends
test.
and stuff like that. And it's like,
Yeah.
I need to prove to myself that I'm still able to do this.
Yep.
And it's generally a really nice thing because I primarily just drink beer at this point, and you lose weight, which is really awesome because you're just not getting all those extra calories and getting all that extra carbs and shit like that you get from beer, and it's a nice reminder and check. But we go out to the last time I did it, I really fucked up because I did it the very worst month. Did it during my birthday month, so like that was not great. We went out to. I was doing the beer show at that
Port
point.
Townsend.
Yeah, I was doing the
Yeah.
beer show at that point, so like I was drinking non-alcoholic beers, which just suck. They do not. If you like beer, non-alcoholic beers are not good. It's just really, really bad.
We've had this discussion on
Oh yeah,
the
yeah,
first time I was. Yeah.
for sure. That's right. I don't want to be rehashing old stuff, but yeah, me and you'd go to Port Townsend, and we were gonna go hit the bookstore and shit like that, and had
Right.
food at that. What was the name of the place? I
The
forget.
old
but
whiskey
yeah.
cider house or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm like going in there, and all I want to do is just have like a beer. It's like a good establishment, or they have tons of different whiskeys
I
and
like
bourbons
it up there. Hit
And
me
I'm
up
like-
next time you guys go up there.
for
Absolutely.
sure. And yeah, it's like, this sucks, man. Like, I do want to have a drink right now, but I'm in the middle of this thing, so I'm not going to do it. It's not great. And nicotine is all I used to smoke a lot of cigarettes, right? Shout out to the military. That's a great way to get into
Fucking kill time.
yeah, nicotine and alcohol. That's what they do. But started smoking cigarettes when I was in high school, and then ever since then it was just a thing. And eventually got off of cigarettes, which was really, really nice because cigarettes are fucking nasty.
And expensive.
Oh yeah,
Super
expensive. They weren't back in my day.
Those
they,
aren't
but
as
they,
expensive as cigarettes, right?
No,
Yeah,
no.
I don't think-
they last way longer.
I
too.
was
That's what I
literally
figured.
just thinking about this yesterday.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know why the fuck I was doing it, but yeah, because like a pack of cigarettes is like between $8 and $10.
Yeah, decent shit's like $11.
Yeah, and
Dude,
so,
New York City. Last
Oh my
time I was
God,
there,
dude, it's
it was
like
20 bucks.
18,
Right.
$20.
And if
yeah.
you're smoking,
When I left, that's how it was.
Terrible.
even
dude.
if you're smoking like 2 packs a week, which is like that's a pretty moderate, that's like 4 or 5 cigarettes
That's
a
pretty
day.
chill.
Like
Yeah.
that's, and I think that's about
That's a
what I smoke
smoker,
when I-
but like more
yeah,
than
super
Yeah.
chill, right? You're
Yeah.
not crushing a
You're-
pack
yeah,
a day or anything.
Yeah, you're not buying cases usually at that
Right.
point.
You're talking about, $100 a month for cigarettes.
Yeah.
Where like I buy one of these a month and it's like $22, something like that.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
know?
so it's significantly
It's a,
cheaper.
yeah, it's
'cause
like
you
a
could-
quarter of the price.
God,
Like,
what if you smoke a pack a day, $11 a day, dude? That's
That's a lot.
I don't know how anybody does it.
$333.
When I smoked cigarettes, I had no bills. I had nothing to pay for.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I had excess money to go to cigarettes, and I still was like, I don't have any money. It's because I fucking bought cigarettes all the time.
Yeah, when I smoked, I was in the army too, but it was like if I was in the field, I'd bring a pack. Just like it's a good perk, be a good, especially if you
little
don't smoke
pick
it
you up.
very often. A little pick me up,
Yep.
gets me out of the cop or the little tent or whatever.
Yep. Get out,
But
get
it was
some
never
breathing.
like the most I'd smoke is like 4 in a day because
Right.
I'd know if I did it the next
Oh,
day.
yeah.
I smoke a cigarette now after I'll go play a round of golf with my buddy and I'll smoke a cigarette. And I'm like,
Yeah.
And that's we've talked about this so many times that's
Dude.
like what's driven me out of it. Because after I quit, I would still smoke
Bad.
a little bit, like when I was drinking. If I was
Yeah.
drinking heavy, I would still hit a couple.
Social smoker.
Yeah, but then I would wake up the next day and the taste and the smell on my
Oh,
hands
dude.
and everything.
I could
just
smoke 3
couldn't.
of these in a night and not feel
It's
that way.
nothing.
It's like why can't they
Yeah.
just put good tobacco inside of these
You
things?
There
can't
you go.
fucking hit a cigarette without tasting it the next day.
Yeah, dude.
And it's horrific. There's
Yeah.
nothing I ever enjoyed
I don't get
about.
Yeah, there was a day like I don't know, a couple months ago.
I was a smoking jacket guy at my house. I had a jacket that I would wear outside when I
Yep.
was at work. I had lotion in my locker. I would go in and wash my hands and then put on lotion. I couldn't stand smelling like it.
Oh, yeah.
I hated it. I hate everything about
Yeah.
that other than smoking. Like I love smoking
Oh,
a
yeah.
cigarette.
The action, of course.
Every other
Yeah.
part of it, I fucking hate.
But the point I was trying to get at,
Sorry.
that's all right. No, I led us here. Was even, and I have quit nicotine for multiple months before, or even sometimes up to a year. But I've never wanted to get back together with Sweet Lady Nicotine. She's a harsh mistress, but man, you have a lot of good times together, and you're always remember them. Always remember them.
Yeah.
They're always in the back of your mind. There's like, nicotine's not too bad because after about 10 days, the nicotine's out of your system, and then it's literally all just mental. But it fucking sits in the back of your mind forever. You could always you always want to just give me one fucking hit of that cigarette, or
I still think about dipping. That's always been my preferred method of
I dipped a
consumption.
lot.
That
Yeah.
Jordan hates it, so I quit.
It's
Like
fucking
when
nasty.
we first got.
Nasty,
It
yeah.
is disgusting. So
All
I'm
my
glad
friends
I
Zyn
don't.
now.
But if I
Same.
But if I was
Zin's sweet.
if I was never with Jordan, I would still dip right now. I would be
Yep.
fucking dipping on this
Bro,
show
you can't.
every time.
No offense, you can't stick any more shit in those lips. They'll stick out too far.
He's got them big lips. You got good genetics, bud.
Gorilla lips. Good. I just want
He's got beautiful hair. He's got
I'm
beautiful
actually
skin.
black. I don't know if you know
I-
that, but
Actually, he's Mexican, but which is
Yeah,
actually
that is
true.
for real. Yeah. No,
That's how he gets that
I'm
Tom
Native
Selleck little
American.
push broom.
I would double
As you can
stack
tell by the
sometimes
red
too.
beard.
I would chew. I did pouches because when I started chewing, I had braces in,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so I would chew the
I've done
pouches,
pouches.
and I would double stack the pouches when I get fucked up. So it was
Oh yeah.
way
I
out there.
dipped from high school till I had a tooth pulled in the army, and I never wanted to dip again. It was the strangest thing. Just never had a craving. I was like, "Ugh, that seems disgusting."
We work with a guy who's dipping constantly,
Yep.
dipping, and he's gotten to a point a few times just in the time that I've known him where like he'll get sores on his bottom lip, so he starts dipping on the top because he's like, it just hurts on the bottom. I'm like, so why don't you
Just stop.
stop dipping?
Oh, I didn't
if
lose
you're
the tip
getting
because of
open,
dip,
if you're getting
by the way.
open sores on your mouth because of dip,
Yeah.
maybe don't dip anymore.
Yeah.
Like that may be the good point, because that's when your fucking jaw starts to fall off. Is when you're getting open sores in your mouth.
Yeah, shouldn't be
and
doing
you're
that.
still dipping up
Oh
top.
my god. Just
Oh,
leaves
yeah,
you
my
to
uncle
kinda-
went through that shit. I mean, that was rough business, man. He was the hardcore alcoholic and just never stopped dipping. Always had a chew in, man. Big fucking fat one too. And it was the same thing. He lost all of his teeth at one point, and he was doing real good at the time with his contracted business, so we ended up getting fake teeth and shit put in. So that was good for him, but like had massive issues. And yeah, I think he quit.
It's people who smoke through a hole in their neck.
Yeah, dude.
They're like they they still smoke.
Yeah.
You're like,
I don't
"You
get how
gotta
some
stop,
people
dude."
can smoke 3 packs a day their entire life, and then some people have to smoke through a tube.
It's so much
weird.
time, and that's so much time smoking cigarettes.
It's all you
much
do.
Time smoking cigarettes if you're
Oh,
smoking
yeah.
3 packs a day.
That's awesome.
That's so much time smoking
That's
cigarettes.
fucking dedication.
It's
right
got to
there.
take you close to 10 minutes to smoke a cigarette, if I remember correctly.
No,
Well, I think
not-
a lot of those,
Not them.
when you're doing that, no, you're just constantly
Yeah, no,
rolling
those
around
just
with one.
chilling. 5 puffs,
Yeah, and then
right.
you're in your house and you're just living your life always with a fucking cigarette.
Right.
I see dudes at gas stations sometimes that won't realize they have a cigarette in their mouth, and then they like kind of get out and they're punching away on the machine and go, oh shit, and they
Hey, look, a
fucking,
little bit of water. Let me ash it in there.
So-
dude,
awesome.
dude, I'm like, that's a fucking level of addiction that you don't even realize.
That's hilarious.
It's wild shit. It's wild shit. I like the fact that because I know we're just recording this, I'm going to edit later. We can let fucking silence linger sometimes. Like, what are we going to do next?
Sometimes the silence is good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've covered addiction pretty well.
Yeah, I think that was
we all
great.
agree that is
It's about an hour already.
a huge portion of mental health is addiction.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really good. I like the idea, just for notes later. Brine had some good stuff to talk about today, and I think that would be a great way to kind of tailor the show around each. If they have anything in particular they want to talk about, do that, and then we could pull up stats and be a little bit more ready for certain things. That
Yeah.
might be good to go as we go into the future. Just food for thought, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cut that part out, obviously, but it's gonna be on the Patreon. I like how we started with a test run, and we've just gone.
It's
This is
working fine.
yeah. I like the way this is working out.
Yeah.
So let's pivot now a little bit off of
Can
addiction.
can I pivot to a latrine, perhaps?
Certainly.
Certainly.
Or the coffees for
Coffees.
losers. Steak knives are for losers. Yeah.
Steak knives.
You don't know that one?
No.
But the two of you guys, we've already talked about this. It's Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross.
Yeah.
That coffees for closers.
Still never watched that movie.
You really should. It's like a small real estate firm, and someone. It's not, the plot doesn't sound good. It's the characters. Pacino is in it, and fucking it's a whole deal. It's very, very, very much worth the. Because it's just 4, 5, 6 dudes
Yeah,
interacting
never even heard of it.
in
Fucking
like
Tim
an
Pool the
office
other day
for-
said pulled a fucking line from that.
Alec Baldwin is in it, and
Yeah.
he gives this whole speech about like why they're there and this and this and this, and coffee's for closers. And
Coffee's
fucking,
for closers, dude.
Yeah, first prize is this Corvette. Second prize is fucking you quit your you lose your job. Just shit like that. But that's a very good character movie.
I'm not a big movie guy.
Yeah,
If you've gathered.
Dude, so after the show, before we leave, you got to talk to her about the man who shot Hitler and then Bigfoot.
that's
because
solid.
it just came up before we left the house today. It just started playing. I was like,
Yeah.
I can't even tell you right now. This is actually a fucking amazing movie.
I don't
but
think there's a thing that we could say to you that's going to convince you that you should watch that movie. You just have to understand that it is good
Yep.
and to make the decision to do it and trust the experience, because I looked at it a dozen times before I was like, all right, I'll fucking watch it. And then I got to it and I was like, this actually was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like it's very funny. The story is funny, it's just a silly story, but the writing in it, there's a level of complexity there that the movie almost doesn't deserve. It's really kind of weird.
fucking great.
Yeah, it's really kind of weird.
It's a good movie about purpose in life.
It's 1,000,000% worth it.
Yeah.
So I brought this
We'll
lighter
add that to
here
the
if
list
you
for
want to smoke
tomorrow.
a joint.
Oh,
So-
I'd love that. If you guys are down. Is
I
she
absolutely
down?
will
Is she
smoke
okay
joint.
with being around it?
You all right with being around? If he smokes a joint. Okay. Cool. So let's
I did smoke a little bit of it on the way here.
Yeah, so I have. You're recording in?
Yep.
Okay. So we were talking earlier about the reasons that people commit suicide, right? And so I had a question here that was we'll kind of combine two things, right? That was about our biggest stressors, like the things that causes us the most level of concern, obviously the most stress. And as I was thinking about trying to find a way to ask that, it worked well into this, that I wanted to just kind of talk about feelings of like worthlessness and not being enough, not measuring enough, I'm sure you understand. I'm extremely self-critical, very, very, very self-critical.
A little bit.
About everything, the way that I conduct myself, the way that the type of fucking father I am, the type of husband I am, the way that we do the show, everything,
the way your
everything.
thought process is.
It's very, very critical. And I find a lot of motivation in that on a day-to-day basis. Probably on a grander scale, because day-to-day it causes me a ton of stress, because I'm constantly questioning whether or not I'm being a good enough father, whether or not I'm being a good enough husband, if I'm capitalizing enough on opportunities for the show, if I'm doing a good enough job, all of that stuff that I keep around because I find that worth in it, that it's driving me forward to always be better. But there's definitely a level of detriment there of I'm fucking with myself in the head, that I'm constantly questioning if I'm enough. And that's not like really a good thing. I question whether or not that's a good thing, I guess I should say.
Are you ever on the side of today I didn't do enough, or I knowingly made this decision that would make me a worse father? Like, I could have done
never
this.
knowingly. It's always in reflection. It's never like I knew at the time that this was the wrong choice and I made it anyway. It's always like a 2020
I could have
thing.
not done
I could
that.
have, or I could have done this instead. Or it's never. I don't want to say never. I can't recall a time in which I am like, you knew you shouldn't have done that and you did it anyway. There are definitely times in the immediate that as soon as I've done it, I'm like, you knew you shouldn't have done that, or that wasn't the right thing, But there's never, not a time I can think of that I've consciously chosen to make the wrong decision, specifically in the fatherhood role, and.
I only say fatherhood because, well, you mentioned it, but obviously I'm a father myself, and I'm a part-time father, right? Well, full-time, I guess, if you want to, whatever.
It's a split custody thing.
Yeah, but whatever. I'm always, and that's the thing, is I'm always making decisions based off of, when I die, I want my son to go, he was a good man to me, and I specifically say to him because I've not always been a good person.
Right.
But if I could always be the good person in his eyes,
Right.
and make the right decisions by him, I just want to die and he said he was a good man and I loved him. And that's it. Every decision based off my life, comes down to that's at the top of the tree. If there's, you know, one of those trees that go out from the top, I
Yeah.
always want to get to that point, right?
And did that mindset only come in to play once you had a kid?
Oh yeah, I mean, from the parenting sense, yeah, of course. Like before that, I was still really young. I mean, I was 24 when I had my son, 23 or 24, and it's like I didn't really know much of what I wanted then. Like I knew I wanted to have a family, and you know, live happily ever after, and just work this job. And it's like, well, life hasn't really proven to be that way now. But it's like I still have my son, and I'm still a son of a father who I didn't know. So it's like he is the most for me to feel successful in my own endeavors. It has to benefit him. Because like I could go be really successful. I could go fly, or I can go fly to Alaska and go work on airplanes for way more money than I make now, and live in a huge, gorgeous house up there making $200-300K a year. But I'll never see my son, right?
Yeah.
And I won't be able to go see my family.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you could, you know, I could do those things and be successful, but that doesn't measure me against the thing I want to be in my son's life and be, you know, for him to say he loves me and I was a good man.
Yeah. No, that's very powerful. I would say the level of self-worth, for lack of a better term, I think it's a constant struggle. I think for pretty much anybody, really, especially any kind of dude. I mean, I think see ourselves as men differently than, and I can't even make the judgment that women think that way too or not, because our brains work totally different. You can see that in our actions and the way we move about life. But I just know for men anyways, there's a huge, the level of self-worth might not even be the right term, but the way we are perceived externally by others, we want to have worth in their eyes. And whether you're getting that from like you guys as fathers and you as a husband, I mean, you have to maintain some kind of relationship with your ex-wife because you guys have a kid together, and so like
when I text message her today and say, "Hey, I'm in traffic. I'm going to be late for the ferry. Can you deviate your plans to accompany me?" Like I hate that.
Yeah,
like that sucks. I hate doing that. It makes me feel like a complete failure, right? Like, and it's like, well, if those are the biggest problems I have as a father to my son. Right, you know, we're doing pretty good in that.
Yeah,
you know, if
life happens,
that could be her biggest gripe about me. We're doing pretty good. Not that I'm whatever,
a bad influence or fucking unsafe to be around, or any of that type of shit. Yeah.
Being a bad influence to your son, that kind of thing. That would be terrible.
Oh, some people could probably say that.
Now, do you think? Let me ask both you guys this.
I question whether or not I should vape in front of my son, like these. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I don't smoke or vape in front of my. Well, I don't vape. Period.
And I don't. I won't. I don't consume like. I know it probably sounds like such like fucking hair splitting, but like I won't consume like flower in front of Dax. Like I won't smoke a joint. I definitely won't.
That's the smell. It's more obvious.
I definitely won't produce something. Like I definitely would never roll something or like smoke a fucking bong in front of him. You know what I'm saying? I'll hit a pen when he's around, but I will not like stand immediately in front of him and do that. You know, and I don't do the same thing with this either. I don't.
That you're smoking something.
He definitely knows that I'm smoking something.
Because my son has to know that sometimes I'm smoking something.
Yeah. And definitely, I know that he does because I know that I did when I was a kid. My parents always smoked weed when I was a kid, and I don't know that I was putting it together at that time.
I'm not sure at his age I noticed or thought about it much.
And I think it's probably in reflection that I'm putting things together. I remember noticing signs of shit. Yeah, signs of shit that I couldn't explain. Like I remember the scent of pot in my dad's house, but not like him smoking. I didn't like watch him smoke, but only then as an adult, then smoking them, be like, oh my god, this is what I fucking smelled in my dad's house.
Yeah.
Was that he was getting high in this room. You know what I'm saying? And then I went into this room.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do wonder at such a young age, because it's like we can't really remember a lot of things when we were like 4 or 5, maybe. I have a hard time remembering most of my childhood, really, except for a few things.
Go put it out, yeah.
But I do wonder what they.
With cardboard.
Oh, put it out on this. Just flick the cherry into them.
There you go. What they do actually perceive and pick up and will remember.
Right.
And does that enter your guys' mind much overall? But, and not just
Yeah,
with, say,
totally.
like drinking a beer or smoking weed or something like that,
No,
but like
I
in
mean-
your day-to-day actions.
I'll
Are
drink
you
beer around my
consciously
son.
thinking
Yes.
that they're watching me do this thing and that might have some form of effect on them in the future?
Yes.
Now, what level of minuteness do you get into at that point?
Oh, I mean, I think about even like the tone that I use with him and stuff like that. How deeply he's considering that. Dax is like very emotionally in tune. You know, he'll tell you if you're like not talking to him right. He's not quite 5, and if he feels like you're being mean to him, you know, and sometimes he's being exaggerated, but a good majority of the time you can take a second and be like, yeah, I could have used a different tone. Like that wasn't, you know, the chillest tone that I could have responded in. And so I think I do think about that stuff, and then definitely, like you said, down to granular. Like we were talking about earlier with drugs, like that was normalized to me. Doing all of that stuff, smoking weed at 13 was normalized to me because everybody that I knew, even if they weren't doing it in front of me because nobody was, I knew that they were all doing that. And so it was normal, you know, like that was fine. And I didn't understand what the side effects or whatever the consequences were from this, you know, or any of that type of stuff. I didn't know fucking smoking pills at 15, you could die. You could literally die from doing that, or you can ruin your entire life, like you said, becoming
Crazy.
addicted to that and then doing your whole life like that. You know, that's 13 years ago. I had no idea. So I do think about that because I experienced just the normalization factor that like this is okay and I trust these people. And that's we're also super particular about who's around him. You know, we don't talk to anybody on my side of the family because
For reasons.
they're not
I
good
was going to ask you
influences.
about that on Thanksgiving, and I'm like, well, obviously now's not the time
Yeah.
or place is what I was saying then.
Yeah, and it's a
But I didn't know
longer-
any of that because when you invited me over to Thanksgiving, you gave me an address, and that was it.
Right.
Like,
I didn't even think about
where
that.
am I going?
Yeah,
What
I
am I
didn't even
walking
think about
and,
that.
and I was like, good enough.
Yeah.
Because I knew that it would be good.
And
Like, I never had anything to worry about.
I'm totally open to discussing it. It's a longer story than can be had on this particular episode, but
You answered enough questions.
But it is something
right
I'm
there.
absolutely open to discussing. I'm not by any means closed off to it. I don't talk to a ton of people in my regular life about it because it's just not that many people's business. You are one of the people I would happily discuss it with.
Yeah.
If you asked, you know, I don't like come out to people about it. I don't like be like, oh, by the way, I don't fucking talk to my mom. But if anybody, you know, asked me about it, I would be totally open about this is why X, Y, and Z.
It was just something I just noticed on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew I'm not going to ask you on Signal.
No,
I'm going to talk. If I'm going to talk to you about it, I'll talk to you in person.
Yeah, and up until a couple of years ago, we did. It's only within the last 2 years that we stopped speaking to the people on my side of the family. My parents are divorced, and my dad lives in Arizona, so I rarely spoke with him regardless. We would speak.
When was the last time you've spoken to him?
Reason was not born yet, but
Oh,
Dax
okay.
was born. He was a toddler. We were living in the basement. It was totally fucking random. I
Yeah.
called you, I think, like immediately afterwards.
Yep. I
Yeah,
remember.
because it was totally random and it had been years. He came to our wedding, which was in 2016, and then I didn't speak to him again until I think I told him when Dax was born, but then didn't speak to him again until that time. So it had been 3 years prior to that discussion, and he called me and tried to spark up a random discussion with me, and when I didn't like immediately respond and like ask him questions, he took very strong offense to that and was
I'm
like
starting to think I've heard you speak about this before.
and I may have talked about it on the show because I've talked
think-
about a lot of this type of stuff on the show
Yeah, I think
because
so.
there have been times when I've spoken to him like on the way to Colin's house, you
Yeah.
know, and so then when I open the show, I'm like, I'm going to talk for a minute because I'm super fucking upset. And those are times you asked me if we had cried.
That was the last Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
those are like, those are times
Yeah.
that I've cried on the show,
Examples,
just when I've been actively in something, you know.
I think we've both cried on the show at least a couple times.
Yeah.
Because when he
Yeah.
brought me on to talk about this, and like we haven't got even scratched the surface about like I didn't know coming in here if we were going to talk about me specifically and like get deep into me, but I think now we're just more talking
just
about
doing whatever, yeah.
about. I mean, and it's probably a good place to start too is talk about what are some of the struggles men are having.
Yeah.
Precisely.
That was one of my kind of generalized topics that I was going to bring up. I was going to start asking you about your family and your upbringing and
Yeah.
what kind of stuff have you dealt with and all that good stuff.
I didn't know that you didn't speak to your family. Like that's
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine being in that situation. I'm very close to my mother and father. Well, my mother and my stepfather, who took me when I was 5. My dad was an alcoholic. We were talked about this. He like was physically violent towards me when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I never saw him again after that until I carried his whatever fucking casket. Yeah, that was it. That whole time in between, never reached out. At the funeral, people were like, he followed you on Facebook, or like was like looking at me on Facebook, not following me or whatever. This is what 10 years ago.
Yeah, doing like Facebook stalking type stuff.
Yeah, and I was like, that's weird because he could have reached out at any time. And what he was just saying about his father calling and him being closed off to that discussion, I look back now and I say to myself, I think I would have easily been in that conversation with him and been attentive and responded and wanted to be there, but then thinking like what he said, it's like, would I have wanted to do that? Because you almost feel like you've been betrayed because he's not been there, and I'm sure that's obviously how he feels.
Yeah. Which is, it's not necessarily that you feel betrayed, but also you fucking were betrayed.
Yeah,
I mean, especially as...
I don't know his story, so I don't want to speak on behalf of him. But yeah,
I
for
just
me,
think in general,
I felt betrayed, but I was so young. I never really. He was never there, so it wasn't like this guy I knew very closely, and then.
Yeah, and that in itself is
couldn't see
like
anymore.
As far as I'm concerned, a betrayal.
Thought it was Dax. It's Jordan. Jordan went to the store. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, I heard the thing, like the thump or whatever upstairs.
Yeah.
And then immediately in my mind, I was like, oh my God, he's been sitting upstairs for 5 minutes. And now
Dad mode
it's
kicks
coming.
in. Boom.
Yeah, it's Jordan. She went to the store. She's back now. I'm really sorry.
Wow,
So,
she went and came back that quickly.
Winco's
You are so
4
close.
minutes
I'm
from
so
here.
jealous, dude. I gotta buy a house in this town. I gotta buy a house.
It's really sweet. Bremerton kind of sucks, but it's nice. It's
I was in somebody's house the other day, dude, and I could not stop hitting my head in how small this house was.
I told you I hit my head on the stairs earlier today.
I want to live.
Hit my head.
I want to live in these few blocks, like in this. From here down to the water, I want to live somewhere in here.
It's kind of cool.
It is just, god damn you. I have to get used to living in that small of a space. I live in a small space now, but like.
Small is nice.
We moved out of a basement, so this is quite large.
Indeed.
Out of a basement to move back into a fucking basement.
I don't mean the square footage of the house. I mean how low some of the ceilings are.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean in the basement, I could touch the
Like-
ceiling with my hands. I couldn't get dressed in a living room.
Yeah.
Here, I can touch the ceilings, but I don't have to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, there you go.
I can put a shirt on in the living room, but also I can reach up and touch the ceiling. I don't have to though.
Yeah.
But if I try to do anything in the living room, I would hit my hands on the lights.
Yeah. This guy's house was insane. I'm in the basement and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's rough. Yeah.
when you go down Burwell, he's at the top of the hill.
Okay.
Like right at the top of the hill. there.
Old houses over there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think it was like 1800s, like 1890
Been around.
something. Yeah.
Been around.
Parts of Bremerton are really fucking old.
Oh, yeah.
Like this house is only 41, but there's
That's-
tons of houses that are
Yeah.
way older than that.
You just know that this house is built for like the war effort, which is so fucking cool.
Yeah.
I think.
This
Yep.
close to the shipyard, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, this footprint with like has been like all over.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You can in Keyport too. There's like 5 different kinds of houses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can kind of drive down and be like 1, 2,
Yep.
3, and just see all the houses that are the same, but like maybe flipped the opposite direction. You know,
Yeah.
the stairs are on the other side or some shit like that, but the layout's the exact same.
Yeah. I really love this town.
Yeah.
It's awesome to live and work around here. We are
I'm
blessed.
really sorry that I interrupted the conversation.
No,
that
you're good.
We were having.
Where
We
were we
carried
at
on.
that point? Yeah,
Um,
we did.
But
Me feeling betrayed about my father.
Because I think when we're talking about the role of a father, it's to fucking be there. And whether or not it's one thing when you're in a in a divorce situation,
Best
right?
computer, if you will.
Yes.
And there's a kid involved, you're still there for your son at any time.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm
so
doing the
you're
best
still
I
there.
can by the law.
You're still there. I
And
mean,
it's like,
that's
what else more
you're
can I
still
do?
in his life constantly. You care about him, but when somebody
got ashes.
just dips out and then likes to come back into their life when their kid is an adult, and it's like, well, hey, I'm going to be here
Is that
now.
what
It's like,
happened
kind of
with you?
fuck off.
Me and my sister's 7 years older than me, and we would see my dad. We started going to see him when I was like 6 or 7. He moved to Arizona. My parents got divorced when I was 2, and he lived up here for a couple years, then moved to Arizona. We went to start seeing him probably just a year or two after we moved down there. And I went down to see him, I think, until I was like 12 or 13, the last couple of years by myself. And then I started to kind of find out about why they were divorced and just kind of some of his history with like drugs, and he was very emotionally abusive and just not a generally good person. And so I was questioning a lot of that type of stuff, and then he didn't really reach out very much in that time until I became an adult. And so we would communicate maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And then he flew up for our wedding. And I saw him then.
Oh, wow.
And I think we got a meal after that too. Him and his wife came up and they had a kid, and they also had custody of one of my sister's kids. And so all 4 of them were up here. And I went to like lunch or something with them. And then that's the last time I saw him. So that was 2016 was the last time
Okay.
that I saw him. And then I spoke to him on the phone. I spoke to him on the phone when Dax was born, and maybe 1 or 2 times after that. And then when Dax was like 3, and before Reason was born, he called, and tried to start a random conversation with me, and then was upset that I wasn't more active in the conversation,
Yeah.
and said things like, why can't, have a whole conversation by myself? And I said to him, well, it's not like I'm sitting around waiting for you to call. Like, I don't have like a list of questions, or things that I want to talk to you about. Like, I'm conducting my life. I don't. You called me randomly on a Thursday or whatever, at 8 o'clock at night when we're putting Dax down. I don't. What do you want me to say to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was very upset with that and started talking about it wasn't his responsibility alone to form a relationship with, to form our relationship. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, it's completely on you if you want to have a relationship with me. I was like, I
It's
don't.
like, you're technically my fucking father, right?
I said, I answered the phone call because he started by saying, I'm surprised that you answered. And I said, I don't have any reason not to answer, but I've never told you that I don't want to talk to you. I've never, as an adult, certainly never told you I don't want to talk to you.
That's how it was like put to me at my dad's funeral.
Yeah,
Like I had a say in it. I was like, I'm 19 years old. I was a kid. I had no say in fucking anything.
It doesn't, even now I'll be 29 in less than a month. It doesn't sit to me as I have my own son who's going to be 5 in January and a daughter who would be 2 in May. It doesn't sit with me as their responsibility for us to have a relationship. That's my responsibility. That's completely and totally on me to put the work in to make sure that happens. When they're adults, there's some level of reciprocity that needs to exist there. But if I want to have a relationship, the onus is on me to ensure that happens. And if they fight that, if they push on that, I still feel like that's my responsibility. If I want that, if I want that, that's my job.
Yeah. Well, even in my parents were never split up, and when I went out, joined the military, and did that whole thing, I was gone. I'd maybe come home once a year, maybe twice if I can swing it, but generally it was like a once a year thing. I'd see them. Get home. It is hard, and sometimes they'd come out and visit me, instead or something like that. But it was like one at a time. I'd only see one of them. But regardless, as an adult who still had a good relationship with both his parents, I thought the onus at that point was on me because I'm out here gallivanting all over the fucking country, living my own life. So every Sunday, I'd call the house, pretty much the same exact time every time, and I'd chop it up with them for half hour, 45 minutes, and then move on. But that's a completely different scenario than somebody abandoning you, abandoning their child, and then all of a sudden put the onus on you to make it your fucking problem.
So
Well, and like they're still my parents. They'll still help me if I need help with things. Like it doesn't sound like if you go calling, and I don't know. I'm not going to
I
speak
honestly
for you.
do not know.
Yeah.
I honestly do not know. As far as my dad goes, I have a pretty good feeling that if I called my mom and told her that I needed assistance with something, then she would do that. You know, that's not the issue that I had with her and that side of my family. That was definitely way more of an emotional deal. And as Dak started to get older, I started to see a lot of the behaviors that I experienced when I was a kid and have colored my emotional development in the way that I interact with people in a negative way. I started to see them do that same type of shit with Dax. Interact with him in a very transactional manner and like just things that are not healthy, and setting up dynamics and relationships that aren't not healthy, not respecting people's boundaries, doing things that I don't think are good. And after multiple discussions, and there's obviously much more stuff that goes into this, they were unwilling to make any adjustments to that. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to even open the door for my son to have some of the same things that I'm dealing with now as an adult because of the way that my family wants to conduct themselves. I know the way that that's impacted me, and if there's even a possibility of that, of him feeling the same way, I'm not interested in that. It's not worth the level of complication that it's caused for me in my formation of relationships with other people. It's not worth it. I don't want him to have to get over that boundary, especially I didn't know or maybe understand this as well at the time, but like especially him being autistic, there are other boundaries there. I'm not trying to set up any more arbitrary ones on a social manner for him trying to form relationships with people. And if he as a child has it in his brain ingrained that love is transactional, I don't want him to begin relationships that way. You know, things like almost cement themselves in him if you don't deal with them quickly, you know. And if that's happening in the background when we're not there, but he's spending time with my mom and my cousins and stuff like that, and they're doing that with him, that's going to become normal, and that's going to become healthy, and that's going to become okay. I'm not okay with that. That's not what love looks like. That's not what caring looks like. That's not what family looks like. That's not how we deal with each other. So there's a lot of stuff like that that I'm not okay with. You know.
Yeah, this seems like it can get very deep. Like obviously, I'm not as familiar as he is, but yeah.
And rivers run deep, baby. I think that would
that's got to be hard to freaking deal with, man. I'm sorry.
Oh no, and I appreciate that. It gets more complicated as Dax gets older because now you know he spends a lot of time with like Jordan's parents and stuff like that, and even them being divorced, he still spends a lot of time with like Kevin and Kelly and you know Grandmommy and Grandpappy. Like these are very regular things. So he asks like, "Where's your grandma? Where's your mom? Where's your dad?" My dad's an easy thing. My dad isn't a good person. He isn't good with me, so he doesn't have a good relationship with me, so we don't talk. That's very simple. Very, very simple, very cut and dry.
I had a very similar conversation with my son today.
The stuff with my mom, you know, when he asked, where does she live? My dad is even, where does he live? He lives in a different state. He lives fucking 3 hours flight from here. You know, it would take us a while to get there. My mom lives fucking 20 minutes from here, last time I knew. She lives in Bremerton. My grandma lives in Bremerton. All of my family, I told you, my cousins live on the same road that you do. So all of my cousins on that side of my family live within the proximity that I had a reoccurring relationship with them up until the point that we chose to withdraw ourselves. So yeah, when he asked that shit, where's your mom? She lives somewhere in Bremerton. What do you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know where she lives. We don't talk to her. Yeah, so it's super complicated, you know, just because that one is not as easy as on like a everyday basis.
Yeah. I feel like there's like an age. There's an age at which that would become more understandable.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine trying to explain that at a certain age. There's the level of comprehension just can't exist. I think maybe.
Also, doesn't really need to be there either.
No. And not at the level of like intimacy and understanding. You know, it's still raw, I would say, to the point that like there's a disparity in understanding that my mom is still fucking on Facebook commenting on like people's photos of us, you know, oh, I wish that they would, you know, let me love them and like stuff like that. That's like this isn't even close
That's
to
helpful.
what's going on. You know, like
Yeah.
Are you saying that
happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom is still doing that. She'll just make random posts on the internet, you know, about fucking how I want us to love my children, and I just wish that they would let me do it, and you know, all that type of shit. That it's, you know, it's our fault that, you know, she's in a victim role. We're doing things to her. We're doing this stuff. You know, I told you my sister is deep in the throes of multiple drug addictions. Certainly there is choice involved in what's going on here, but to act as though, you know, there's a disparity in understanding there of even what the core issue is that doesn't even beget a conversation worth having, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what we've been the last, like, since we stopped talking to them, that, like, Jordan and I have talked about it many times, and, like, I don't have any indication now that a conversation with them even about what these issues are would be fruitful or productive. So I don't have any reason to want to try and communicate with them, you know? So,
Yep. That's going to be a real good episode in the future, I think. Just diving deeper into some of that stuff.
yeah, sorry if I drug out too long. I know
No,
that
you
I was
did
like,
not.
it's fucking too
That
long
was-
to fucking...
No,
was great.
how do you approach something like that? You know, how do you try to do it in a short amount of time?
Yeah,
You
there's
can't.
obviously much more detail that
And
like I said, I'm happy to
I
share
have to
with you
explain
at
to
any
my son
time.
one day why I'm not with his mom. Either.
Right,
yep.
And like, it's not that doesn't come up. It's just like, you know, because we're not.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, and
when you're 20, I'll talk to you about it.
yeah, when there's a level of understanding that can be properly had,
Yeah.
then it'll actually be a worthwhile conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's you gotta find the right balance of what to actually say, and that I can't imagine what that struggle is like for both of you guys. I feel kind of lucky might be the wrong word, but I feel lucky that I don't have to deal with those kind of things. And this is essentially part of the reason why we're doing this show, is to be able to have conversations like this, explore these different avenues of men's mental health. I mean, these are all things that make us who we are today. They color the decisions we make and the choices we make throughout life and how we move through it. And everybody has stories like this in some capacity. Everybody goes through some type of shit. Every dude out there is dealing with things that they don't generally talk about on a wide scale basis. And we fucking should be, because there's no other way that we're going to reach a level of understanding towards other men and even from the opposite sex. If they don't know what we deal with and the things that run through our minds and how we approach them and the consequences of everything, they don't know what they don't know, and then they have no idea how to be around us at that point or understand why we do certain things that we do. And everybody's got an individual story but that brought them to where they are. And Brine, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming today and sharing the, you know, like we said, we've only scratched the surface on this.
Yeah.
So you
Can I leave you? Can I leave you with one request?
I would absolutely love to do that.
Everybody talks about reaching out, getting help, therapy, your family, your friends, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about really what that means and what you can expect when.
Oh yeah.
Because I'd like to know, right? Because I've got problems, right? And I've expressed them in the chat a few times, like just talking to Bronson the other day.
Right.
Like, hey, I'm dealing with it in a similar fashion you are. Like, and I don't know what more to that there is. Just like, hey, like acknowledge it and let's try to like fix it, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe dive a little deeper and see.
Oh,
you know.
absolutely. I've gone through a very intense version of that over the past like year, and we'll just say the way I went about it was, I think, extremely healthy for me, and I know it was extremely healthy for the people that I really talked to about stuff like that. Went through similar situations around similar times, and yes, the concept of even bringing something up like that, especially to like a good friend of yours, I don't want to fucking put that burden on you. it's not something that I want to do to a good friend of mine. But it turns out when you go about it properly, it pays dividends that I can't even begin to explain how healthy they have been. So I will absolutely be diving into that realm more as we go along, because I've been the benefit of it very recently, and it's all very fresh, and I cannot explain to you the level of healthiness I got from that.
I'll say, because the whole time you were saying that, I'm thinking to myself, I've expressed, my life situation, and you invited me to Thanksgiving. Like, what a difference me being with you and your family could have been, as opposed to me getting fucked up at home, playing video games, being depressed that I don't have my son. I'm too far from my family. Like, nope, got some good-ass food, hung out with you. It was a good time.
Yep.
I go home, go to bed, and have some leftovers for the next day.
Right. Yeah.
Like, what a difference that made just from, talking to my friend and you knowing me a little bit deeper than some of the other people who I call my friends, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, there's different levels, and yeah, as we go forward, we'll definitely be exploring those because they are worth their weight in gold.
Well, good start to your thing, boys.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Thanks for coming, buddy. As always. So we'll
keep pushing it.
We'll
and I'll be back.
We'll get the next one on the books here pretty soon.
Yeah.
We'll get you scheduled out, and and then I want to dive deeper into you next time. This will be good.
Ooh.
Don't tempt me with a good time, buddy. All
right.
So I don't really have any closeout lines, I guess, but
I think the only one I want to say for this one is just stay strong.
Stay strong.
I think that's the thing. Stay strong is it's part of the original one, the one for the main show, and I think that's kind of the theme of this one is not like a. You don't need to be an unwavering, emotionless piece of stone. That's not what we mean.
Nope.
We mean stay strong. Keep pushing. It's worth it for you to stay here. Your life is worth it. You are worth it. You do mean something. You do have value. There are people in your life that care about you. Sometimes you don't know about it,
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know if you thought that I might reach out to you on Thanksgiving or something like that, or like that was a possibility or whatever. I don't mean in that specific instance, like me specifically, but I don't know that the opportunity was there. I just mean that like there are people that care about you to that level, even if you don't know about it. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean.
was waiting, and I was like, I assume somebody may reach out because people usually do.
Yeah.
And you did, but I was gonna be like, hey, is anyone doing anything that I could go do?
Yeah.
Because I knew I needed it, but I just hadn't done it yet, right? And I probably should have done it earlier than
the day before,
fucking day before.
Yeah.
But I was like, whatever, I also wasn't sure if somebody was gonna say something last minute,
Right.
Because I usually have a place to go, and my buddy, he was going over to see his in-laws, so that was it.
I was staying in the kitchen, cooking dinner for the kids, thinking about going shooting, thinking about the boys, and I was like, "Ooh, Brine." I was like, "Oh, I wonder if Brine is doing something tomorrow." Yeah,
hit him up.
before Jordan even got home. It's like,
Well,
I'm
appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely, dude.
Hey,
I
buddy.
love you.
Well, I love you too, man. It's been a real pleasure meeting you and meeting you through him, and I cannot wait to see you out there on the 9th. And
That's right, baby.
it'll be good for you, I think, too.
Oh, I guarantee you it is.
So there will be no cancellations.
No.
We don't do cancellations around here, bitches.
All right, dress warm too. That fucking
Oh,
hill
yeah, that's gonna
in
be
the
cold.
wintertime. That hill, people don't realize we've had a lot of people come unprepared. Whatever this is, subtract 20 degrees and
Oh, for
add
sure.
30 miles an hour wind.
When we were up, we went shooting last
Every time. Or
weekend.
you're on the sun.
In Quilcene when we went, and
Okay.
it's,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know the elevations or anything
Yeah,
like
I
that. I
don't-
just
I don't
mean
know
the
exactly
level
where
of
you've been
coldness.
to.
There were legit ice crystals 3/4 inch long on the rocks on the ground.
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
colder than tits out there.
I've been driving up around this area and
Yeah.
getting high.
Yeah. No, I got a big plastic tote full of just scrap wood. I think I'm gonna bring out there with me. We'll
Get a little fire going.
during lunchtime at the very least. Get
It's
warmed
never a
up
bad
little
idea.
bit.
I was
Yeah.
going to ask the chat if anybody had the chat. Ask the
right.
group.
The
if anybody
amble-
had a
the
fire
amblest
pit.
of men.
I was going to grab some firewood and
I say bring firewood no matter what. There's usually a couple of pits.
We'll
set
figure
up
out
there
something.
Already.
Yeah,
we'll
we
grab
could
some rocks
grab
and
some
just
bigger rocks
Make
and-
one.
I think that'll be. We're there for so long. It'll be nice to have a little place to
Yes.
gather around.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
For especially
We've been
during
doing this too long now without staying warm.
lunch and during the class and stuff. We'll be sitting around for a little while, so it will be worth,
Yeah. We've had some catastrophic weather events with tents flying and hitting cars. And,
Ooh, yeah.
oh.
Nice. All right. Well, I look forward to it, gentlemen. Both of you. Love you
Yes.
both, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thank you.
Cool.
Welcome to the south of the streets, coming at